Friends, if you're looking for real old school laughs, you're in for a treat because we've got them right here. Flip City Magazine. Remember Mad Magazine? Then it went woke? Well, don't worry. Flip City has no chance of going woke. That's right. 4 times a year, you'll get an actual printed magazine full of jokes, stories, comics, and more, all about today's pop culture, entertainment, and woke politics. Flip City takes terrible entertainment trends we love to hate with hilarious parodies of Lord of the Rings, Stranger Things, The Walking Dead, Star Trek, Hunters, and more. Trust me when I say there is nothing else like Flip City on the market. So subscribe today. It will be delivered in print, or you can even get it digitally if you're one of those wacky Zoomers. Either way, follow our link and sign up today, and if you put in midnight, you get an extra 10% off. Check out Flip City Magazine today.
The Marleys were dead to begin with.
Well, pardon me?
That's how the story begins, Rizzo. The Marleys were dead to begin with.
Well, good evening, everybody.
Good evening, everybody. My microphone's having a freak out.
Good evening.
Somebody at the door.
Good evening.
I hit the button and everything went mute on me. It was like weird.
That's what the
Good
stream
evening,
needs to
everybody.
mute.
And welcome to the Shitlist, aka the Top 5, where we count down our top 5 favorite whatever in film and television. Tonight, we're going to talk about film adaptations from books. And we have with us Scribe Light, which is kind of fitting since we're talking about books. How you doing?
Doing all right. Thank you, Tom. Hi, everybody. Hope you're doing all good this evening.
Doing the best we can. We also have Brian, aka that 70s rock fan as well. How you doing?
I'm doing very well, sir. Good evening. Good evening, everybody. I will be avoiding the B word tonight.
The book?
Yes, that
Buke.
word. I can't say it.
No, I don't think
won't
you can get
tempt me.
away with it tonight. I think
I'm
tonight
not
is
gonna-
like, it's obligatory.
It's a novel.
It's
Oh, that's a
novel.
novel idea. Why
book.
can't you just say book like a normal person?
The book.
Is
No,
it
I
novel?
can't. No, you
Novel
mean
or
it's-
novel?
It's a novel. A navel. It's a navel.
Naval idea.
I'm gazing at it right now.
Gazing navel. Speaking of
Very
someone
good.
I'm pretty sure has never been in the Navy, and that is Price of Reason. How you doing?
Well, how do you know I never was there?
You can be a better man, Price. if
In
you're
the
amazing.
Navy. Well, have you been?
You can sell the 7 Seas.
No, I actually wasn't in the Navy, but you could never assume anything about anybody. You never really know, do you?
That is very
That's
true. That is very true. But
He may
I would
not have
just
been in the
assume.
Navy, but he's been in a few seamen.
Ooh.
Hey, there we go. Bam. Thank you.
Bam. And that, of course, is the cutting humor of Mr. Toxic Man Flu. How are you doing?
I'm filled with cuts from all my humorous anecdotes today. So there you go.
Death of a Thousand
Cutting
Cuts, huh?
So yeah. Yeah, I have struggling a little bit with eyesight and headaches right now,
Yeah.
but I'm doing the best I can, and we're going to get through this. I think it's a good list. I got a lot of people out in the chat. Very excited. So good stuff.
Yes, indeed. We got Andy hanging out. I think he said he's going to be getting drunk, probably because of the Irish holiday. It's like
It
Irish
is St.
Thanksgiving.
Patrick's Day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Diddly 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 bitty.
It is because I go home and my mom just shoves corned beef down my throat. It's just like, come on, okay.
Ah,
You know,
there's an
not
image.
Literally. Not literally, but you know what it's
Just
like. It's
love
like
meat.
Irish Thanksgiving. It's like you expect to come home and your
You
mom's
can
there
get
and
meat
she's
shoved down your throat.
cooking it all up. Yeah, that's right. Just like every typical family function. Keith Howard's here. How you doing, Keith? We got FKHC 2005. Penny's in the house. And this is true, Dr. Coffin Nails. He said Muppet Christmas Carol is actually one of the most faithful adaptations. This is accurate. But do hit the like button and share out the link. Let everybody know that we're live. We got Ben Dowdy, who's been here for 7 months. Thank you for being a member. We appreciate that. And yeah, we've got so many regulars coming in here. I see E-Clay. I see, let's see, we got Darth Scipio, we got Warlock, we got JB Spooky Review, Warachi's here, Putin's Cat's here, Tornadoes is here. Welcome, hit the like button, share out the link, let everybody know that we are live. Although I'm sure Valiant is still live yet, but hopefully those guys will join us here pretty soon. And yeah, we're just going to get things rolling because we have a heck of a list tonight to talk about. This is one we've been trying to get to for a while, but things have gotten in the way. So we're not going to waste much time here. Our top 5 book adaptation films, or top 5 film adaptations, however you want to put it. Here we go. Let's get started. We've got number 5 on Toxic Man Fru's list, and I was glad that you had this because this has been one of the top. I say this every week, but this is literally, and I mean that punly, one of the hardest lists to put together.
Yes.
I even cheated.
Yes, impossible almost.
I did cheat
because we could have done a top 30.
Yeah.
With this easily. Yeah. So there's just so many things.
Go ahead and take the
with
reins.
this one. So this was I'm not a huge fan of the author who shall not be named.
Right.
Because after he got hit by the car, man, he went freaking nuts. But he's got so many stories. He's like, he's a genius. He's a literary genius, and he's like Prince, who was a music genius. And Prince wrote so many stories and things for others, and stuff was created off of what Prince created. Well, same thing here. Stephen King has written so many things, and it's just one after another. So Rita Hayworth in The Shawshank Redemption. And this had a race swap in it. The character that is played by Morgan Freeman was actually a ginger in the book.
Oh, that's right. I totally spaced that out. Yeah.
And
that's why he's called Red. Yeah.
That's why he's called Red. Right. And it was never talked about in the movie, never addressed, didn't need to. You needed
it's kind of a throwaway joke, actually, in the movie. Right. Sorry.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's kind of a throwaway thing. Why do you call it? But you needed a powerful actor in that role. And I can't think of this film existing without Morgan Freeman as Red.
Mm-hmm.
No way. And so the cast that they had picked for this was really good. What was the guy's name that played the warden? He was good. Yeah.
I know who you're talking
Clancy
about.
Brown.
Yeah,
there you
Clancy
go.
Brown.
Thank you.
Clancy Brown, very good, great actor. And Clancy Brown played the
I'm thinking
guard.
Guard.
Yeah, he was
right.
But
this Clancy
Bob Gooden.
Brown's,
Bob Gooden.
Bob Gooden.
That's who you're thinking of.
Yeah, Bob Gooden. Right. And but Clancy Brown, this was his best role. He's been on a lot of stuff, right? But he was great in this film, and all of them interacting together. Now, how close is it to the book? With most,
It's actually pretty close.
Yeah, with most of these stories, you get out like Lawnmower Man, and all that kind of stuff. Things. This one, I'd say, is probably 80-85% of the book.
Between this and Stand By Me are probably his closest adaptations.
Right.
I would say.
And it's a great film. It's one that stands the test of time. It's a story and a point in time. Great actors, great ending, great beginning, great middle. Brooks. That whole storyline of Brooks and everything was in there. And it just shows the strength of humanity.
Well, he's the reason that, you have the great line, get busy living or get busy dying.
Busy dying. And but the strength of humanity, how these two men are friends, and everything that Andy Dufresne goes through, just completely unfair what life has done to him. It's basically the Count of Monte Cristo.
Kinda.
Yeah, only, I mean, he doesn't find this treasure and come back and ruin everybody else's life. He does it over a long, drawn out period of time. So it's an injustice, long, drawn out period of getting back to even, but it doesn't seem to have destroyed who Andy Dufresne was as a human being. In fact, he has grown to be a better person through all of this. And I think that's a good lesson from that. And I think that's the lesson that Red learned, is at the end in his parole hearing, you know, and what he says there, you know, well, honey, I don't care, and stop wasting my time. And then okay, he's rehabilitated now. Yeah, and he's like, what does rehabilitated mean? But yeah, and then he finds all those things that Andy left for him, and it's spoiling a film. It's 20 years old. So, but yeah, great film. And
Try 30.
30, yeah. I try and stay 20 now, because if I say 30, I feel real old. So everything's just, you know, it's like on my resume. You know, I've got 8+ years experience. I'm not sitting there saying 30 anymore. But I can't. I saw all these films. There's no argument against any of these from there, and I think this is probably the greatest Stephen King adaptation of all time.
It's hard to argue with,
Yeah, it's a top 100 film.
Maximum Overdrive. What are you talking about?
Oh yeah, that's true.
Sorry.
Green Goblin on a semi truck.
That's it.
What do you want from us?
There's one that I have that's a guilty pleasure. I mean, I like Firestarter, even though I know it's not necessarily a good movie, but I like it for some reason.
Well,
That's one I've never read the book of, so I can't really compare the adaptation. Yeah.
But still, it was okay. It was a good film at the time. You know, when it came out, went and saw it, and I don't want to put anybody down for their. Yes, Stephen King wrote more than just horror.
Well, I'm sure Many Dragon is being sarcastic here, but yeah, that's the irony of it, is his non-horror stories are better than his horror stories, in my opinion, and that's where his best stories, are like Shawshank, Green Mile, and stuff like that.
Paul McCartney was in a band before Wings.
No way.
Really? I know. It's
What?
Tough. It's tough. What? I know, and that came before his solo career, so it was just very.
Oh my god,
it's weird.
What's funny is
so
70
weird.
and Si are probably once old enough to actually get.
I thought Kanye West discovered him.
Kanye West is covering him now. Yeah. But yeah,
no, I
wasn't he married to Yoko Ono? Wasn't he married?
Yes,
to Yoko
once or
Ono?
twice.
Kanye West.
So.
No,
Kanye West.
and Paul McCartney.
Yep, they had a child together.
Get Yoko's name out of your mouth. I think that's
Kanye.
Well, I'm glad this made your list, because Kanyono, that's good.
That's
because I wanted to get this one on my list. I knew it would make somebody's list, so I'm like, all right, I can't squeeze anything more on here than I already have. And then after seeing everybody's list, I probably could have been a little bit more other stuff on there. But no, I'm glad it made the list, and I'm glad it. We're talking about it already, so thank you, Tox, for that one. And unless anybody else has anything to say, I think we should keep moving along.
Yeah, we got a lot to do.
I recently saw the Dead Zone with Christopher Walken, and I don't know if it's a good Stephen King movie, but Christopher Walken cracks me up. He's so Christopher Walken in the movie. Just every line that he says, he's full on Walken.
He's the best Walken we've ever had.
Yes.
I just love it. I don't know why.
That and Communion are two of his very Walken-esque movies. If you haven't seen Communion, check that one out, Price.
Love that movie.
I'll check it out.
It's about him getting visited by aliens. It's exactly as batshit crazy as it sounds. And speaking of batshit crazy,
so that's my 5 minutes up.
No. Go ahead, Brian. Here you go. The Time Machine.
So as usual, I've got some vague rules when I do these things. One is that I have to have read the tome, the publication, the treatise first.
The book.
No, there's no such word. I have to have read that before I ever saw the movie. And the other is it has to have been something that stayed relatively true to the ethos of the source material, if not word by word. And there was at least 2 authors in my top 5 I could have had twice. I decided to just pick one by any author, as it were, not double up, which I was sorely tempted to do for at least 2 of them. Anyway, first one on my list, The Time Machine, the 1960 George Pal adaptation. Great George Pal, that great director of stop motion action movies. It looks fantastic in this. I love that style. and the adaptation, obviously, of H.G. Wells' novella, published in 1895. And yes, the movie does add in some details, like it was in the novella. The time traveler doesn't have a name; he's not named, and things like that. But it does stay very close to the ethos of the book. I said that word. Shit! I'm gonna. Ow! Book. And it does pretty much follow the end point, which is to go for the. I think it's the year 8002 or something, and the Eloi and the Morlocks and the savagery. And Wells was obviously commenting on where he thought humanity was going to end up, etc. There's some fantastic scenes on the way there with the as he hops through time to get to that point, and then. But the whole part in the of the Eloi and the Morlocks was pretty much the same as the novel, other than the ending of the novel. The movie is different from the novella,
Right?
By quite a distance. But great movie, fantastic adaptation, and I don't think H.G. Wells himself. I'm not sure if he was still alive in 1960. Probably not. Can't remember. He probably would have liked it. I think. I'd like to think so. So, fun movie. A very fun movie.
I feel like we need to have the equivalent of a swear jar for Brian when he says "book."
Yes.
Yeah.
So when I'm talking about perhaps a paperback or a hardback or
There you go.
some kind of.
He's going to come up with every single synonym you can think of tonight. So get your drinks out, folks. Every time Brian slips up and says "book," take a drink.
Anyway, I love this movie. I loved the original source material. And H.G. Wells was a seminal.
I loved
author,
the inventiveness of the look of the time machine, because it is kind of iconic, right?
And I like the fact that they kept it in the Victorian era. Didn't bring it up to let's say the 1960 era when the movie was made. They kept that aspect of it. It was very Victoriana in that respect.
Right.
Yeah, a great look to the machine.
This is actually a rare case where I read the book and didn't see the movie.
All right. Okay. It's a lot of fun. Honestly, it's a fun movie. So,
I can't really recommend the more modern version of it.
No. I had to make sure I'm talking about the 1960 movie.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Anyway.
So let's keep moving along. We're doing all right, I think. We've got number 5 on Price's list. He's off to see the wonderful Wizard of Oz.
Yep. I think this is a classic movie, and also given the year that it was made, it's such an old movie, but it still has that kind of magic, and it was so, I think, revolutionary for its time. But even today, I still think after all these years, it still captures the magic of the book, and it's a rare early adaptation that I really think that they got a lot of things right, and it really is a classic. So I think it's worthy of making the list.
Yeah, I've never read the books myself. I do know this is like a extremely loose adaptation of like the third book or something like that. But no, I think you're right. I think the movie itself has gravitated way beyond what the books were. And I mean, as a part of cinema history, this is one of those movies that gets, it's almost referenced in damn near every single film
Right.
at some point.
Right. Well, it's the first film in color. Right.
Well, that's technically not true. I think it was the first the first major film to have technicolor in it, and it
went from the black and white to the color. Right?
Yeah, there was a few before that, but it was.
Well,
my
mother, who grew up in this era with films, to Price's point, read the books, and it was just to see the magic of it on screen, even though it may not have been 100% there. This and my mother loved Fantasia. And love this and the Sound of Music, those kind of things there. But this, I'm glad Price put this on its list.
Timeless is, I think, the best word here. I think Ironwolf's right.
Right. You're not going to, you are going to remake this in a totally different way. Right. I thought The Wiz was a great film, too.
I liked it. The Wiz has Michael Jackson in it, and in his kind of prime, singing and doing whatever. Hard not to like it with Quincy Jones producing the music. You know, one could
100%.
argue the Wiz that maybe Diana Ross seemed a bit older for that part, but you know what? I even like the Wiz.
Yeah, it was
Actually, that's
Diana
funny because I
Ross,
asked, I asked Paul one day because we were talking about the Wiz. I'm like, I wasn't alive then. I'm like, was there any controversy over the Wiz when it came out? He's like, no, the only controversy there was
Absolutely
that
not.
Diana Ross was too fucking old to play Dorothy.
That was it. That was
was,
really the
yes.
only thing. But you couldn't argue her voice
Right.
in that.
She sang
right?
well.
Right. And it's like this was just it was a perfect for, and if you've ever watched a documentary on Judy Garland and her life,
Right.
you can see what they did. That's what that Hollywood machine they were talking about and stuff back that time, what they did to Judy Garland. And you can tell how Shirley Temple got out of it and stuff. They talk about that. But this entire cast, well-known actors at the time, and
I particularly enjoyed the villain with the interchangeable hand parts, like the flamethrower and the. Oh wait, that's a different movie.
yeah, so totally different. Yeah, sorry about that.
Judy Garland was great in this, though, for whatever it's worth.
Oh no, Judy Garland is a phenomenal talent. She did stuff with who was the little short guy? Andy
Mickey Rooney.
Mickey Rooney, yeah.
Comics division.
Comics, yes. Him. Well, it is his day, the Leprechaun Day, and I don't think he's Irish, but I don't think it matters. Yeah, anyway, yeah. But I'm glad you picked this, and it is a timeless film that has driven the movie industry for a long time.
She became an alcoholic and stuff, right?
They had her. Well, that was back when they would give you pep pills, and they were amphetamines, right?
Yeah.
The doctors would prescribe it, and Mickey Mantle had a problem with stuff. They were giving him pep shots and things and stuff during the 61 and all that, and he got one site infected because they didn't clean the needles as much as they used to. And all that stuff. Just amazing. Yeah, from there.
Well, the studio wanted Shirley Temple, which actually at the time, I mean, she would have been. It was almost like an inspired. Well, not just that. It's just obviously she's Dorothy from the book, right? Like, I mean, right age, hair color, everything. But they couldn't get that worked out, and Judy Garland was their next big choice. And yeah, because and sadly, this movie is one of the movies that kind of set her down that path. Because I mean,
But amphetamines should have put her in a better mood, no?
Well,
at first
you can
they
only
did
run at full speed for so long.
That's just it. She became addicted, and then I mean, that's the thing. She's one of the most tragic Hollywood stories ever. And what she went through and what she tried to do to come back, and the grueling schedule that she led doing the live shows just to feed her kids and shit. Like it's insane that she actually got to that point and how young she was when she died and how old she looked when she died just because of the alcohol and drugs and stuff and the abuse. So yeah, she is sadly a cautionary tale of Hollywood, especially coming up young in Hollywood. Yeah.
Oh well.
But
good pick.
What she did leave us was a legacy of probably, arguably, the most famous film of all time. You can say Gone with the Wind, you can say Star Wars, you can say Jaws, but I guarantee you'd find more people on the planet Earth alive today who have seen The Wizard of Oz than any other movie in history.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
And she's great in it, so you can't take that away from her. She's perfect as Dorothy.
We need to have a mashup called The Wizard of Jaws.
Oh,
I would be there in a heartbeat.
I'm telling you, hey, anybody from the Asylum film production company out there, Wizard of Jaws. Just saying.
She's gonna,
and it's
just
got the
Dorothy's
guy as that Jaws in the Bond films as the wizard.
Richard Keel.
She's gonna be all like, "You're gonna ignore this particular witch until it drops a house on your ass."
We're gonna need some bigger shoes.
You put on special glasses and everybody's an Oompa Loompa.
Yeah,
the Star Wizard of Jaws would be better.
The Star Wizard.
The Star Wizard of Jaws.
But yeah, so great film, and I'm glad it made the list. Indeed, we got 6 sending in, I believe, a pooper sticker. Thank you for that. Mm-hmm. And then Eric Wimberg gifted a membership. Thank you for that. And I think Many Dragon was the recipient of said gifted membership. And Eric Wimberg is a huge supporter of not just this channel, but Mead Radio and all the other places we broadcast here at Midnight's Edge. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. And with that, we're going to move along on the list. Unless anybody else had one more thing to say about Wizard of Oz.
Nah.
No? Okay. I think we did this one pretty well. And thank you, Price, for making sure that made the list. We've also got next up from Scribelight, Casino.
Yeah. So overshadowed, I think, and I think to a certain extent unfairly by Goodfellas. Not that Goodfellas isn't a great film, but Casino, as far as just like a mob pick, and some of the most memorable performances in a mob movie from De Niro and the guy whose name suddenly escapes me because my brain sucks. Joe Pesci, Sharon Stone, James Woods in this. I mean, every character in this movie is so memorable and well developed and well cast. It creates an entire universe, and the narrative jumps from character to character and covers so much ground in the lives of these characters and how they interact with the city of Las Vegas and the government and the whole mafia
Loosely based on a
dynamic.
true story too. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Nicholas Pileggi wrote Casino about the true story of Frank Rosenthal, who De Niro's character is Ace Rothstein, and the real character was Frank Rosenthal. And then Tony the Ant, I forget what his last name is, but that was the name of Joe Pesci's character out of this. And so I read the book, like except for one entry on my list, which I'll have to, begrudgingly admit to when we get to it. Every book I've read on my list, and reading the book and then watching the movie. I saw the movie before I read the book. When I read the book, it was, as accurate a retelling of the events as you could get and still make a movie that was, coherent and concise. But it's also a long movie. I think that's what kind of throws people off, and that's why it's not as well loved, I think, as Goodfellas. Because Goodfellas was very, very tight script. You had a very focused character and chain of events, very linear. This movie bounces around so much from the different characters and events that move on from the beginning to the end. But it is epic. It's an absolute epic. It creates an entire world unto itself. The book is reading journalism, basically. It's just reading like the chain of events through these characters' lives, these real people's lives, and what really went on in Vegas in that era. And while the movie definitely shows the consequences of dealing with the mafia in 1970s Las Vegas and so on, the book has a lot more details in there that make the characters even more scary and or amazing, depending. So I can't recommend the book more highly. The book's great, but the movie is just one to the other, just absolute perfection. And it's just such a classic mob film now that you really couldn't have done better than hand it to Scorsese.
Yeah, I've never actually read the book, so it didn't make my list, but this is a great film. And it is kind of like a spiritual sequel to Goodfellas in a lot of ways, which is kind of cool too. And really it was kind of like Scorsese created that style with Goodfellas, and then he carried it over to here in Wolf of Wall Street, if you know what I mean. I don't know if you agree with me or not, but
well, I think Scorsese's strength in both Goodfellas and Casino was that he was adapting real world events and kind of giving you the inside look. And that's actually kind of a
same thing with all three of those films. Yeah, that's kind of I feel like
you're
very much a spiritual trilogy of sorts. Yeah.
Yeah, you're getting a really an inside look that is based on real people and real things. That is effectively just changing the names to protect the innocent and the guilty, kind of thing, for both Goodfellas, Casino, and Wolf of Wall Street. That's why I didn't really like what was the Irish one? I suddenly forget.
Oh, The Irishman. Yeah, that one's not so much a biopic as it is. This is a plausible thing. But
it's extrapolated on real people, but it never had that same feeling of being on the inside of real events, kind of thing. It was sort of a pastiche of things.
Yes.
But anyway, Casino really makes you feel like you're seeing an inside look because it's so well drawn from the real world characters and events and the performances. I mean, there's so many great lines in that. The music is perfect. Every character is so well crafted. You got Don Rickles, even though Don Rickles is only in there for
this movie reminded people that Layla had a second half.
Oh yeah,
because it only has the second half of Layla in it.
That's true. I didn't think about that. But anyway, so not to go on too long.
Sorry, I didn't mean to derail it there.
No. No, but if you haven't read the book, definitely read the book. Even if you just like stories about the mafia and how the mob operated in Vegas and everything, the book is great. The movie's great. Yeah, it's a sit, but it goes by quick when you pay attention, and it's just an amazing film, amazing adaptation.
I want to say that I think that this is the movie that Sharon Stone acted the best in.
Oh yeah, she's great. She's amazing. amazing. Scorsese got such great performances out of everybody, and Sharon Stone.
She's twisted as hell in this movie. Absolutely.
Yeah,
You totally
she
believe
carries
her.
it. She carries through scenes.
She's honest with De Niro's character, though. She tells him she doesn't love him, and he insists on making her marry him anyway.
It's the weirdest thing because she has there are three I'm not going to give too much away, but there are three male characters within the movie that she's most primarily connected to, and that's De Niro's character, Joe Pesci's character, and James Woods' character. In my mind, the rarest thing is in every scene she's in with either one of these three guys, the chemistry is legit. I mean, somehow all the stars aligned, and the performances and the chemistry between the characters made you feel like this is a real world we're looking at. It didn't feel put on or like, thinly veiled or something. It all felt like she really has a history with this guy. She really has a relationship with this other guy.
I have an explanation. I want to offer an explanation for why that is.
Okay.
She looked really good in this movie. And I think that male actors, when they are acting with a woman that looks good, it causes like chemistry to generate.
Well, not only that, I think Sharon was just kind of at her peak here. Right, you have her post Basic Instinct and some of her earlier stuff, where she's finally getting her chops, and you throw her a director who is arguably at his peak, right?
Yeah.
And you're right, 100%. Because if I remember right, because it's been a few years since I've watched the movie, like a lot of her bullshit is what sends everything going into a spiral at the end, anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, she's
a very central character to the whole plot. Yeah,
she's the Helena Troy of the entire thing. She really is.
Yes, and that's the thing is her performance in here, and I give most of the credit to Scorsese because I'm sure he was pulling out from her the best she's got.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
because you're right. After this, it was never the same. Before this, you could tell she was just cutting her teeth. This was her in her prime, right?
Yes.
Like and you're right. Like she is. Did she get? I think she got nominated for this, but I don't think she won.
This
I was going to say if
this performance is how you know that Scorsese is a phenomenal director. That's it. She hasn't been the same since. She wasn't the same before. That was 100% pure director pulling out of her what she needs.
Sharon Stone was nominated for Best Actress.
That's what I thought. I don't think she won though, but yeah.
But at least it shows that if there's a good director, she's capable of putting in such a performance.
Absolutely.
So,
well, it was the same thing with Verhoeven, right? Like that's her other most famous role is Basic Instinct, right? Well,
right.
And he just pulled out the nasty side of her, of the sexual side of her. Scorsese, on the other hand, that's the thing I like about her characters. You go from liking her, feeling bad for her, to fucking hating her by the end.
Mm-hmm.
And she manages to pull all three of those off in one movie. And that's very difficult to do for an actor.
Right.
All right. That's my number 5.
Oh, absolutely. And I could talk about this one for a while. I want to see this again. Now that you brought it up, I got to revisit this one again. We've got coming up next on my number 5, The Exorcist. Like, I mean, talk about a film that's probably even more powerful than the book that was already controversial. Coming from a guy who was known for writing comedy, and he just up and decided he's going to write this horror novel, and he didn't think it was going to do jack squat. And now it was the thing that he's most well known for, right? I even think he said in an interview, he goes, I've worked on all these comedies with different people throughout the years, and on my epitaph, it'll say, the man who wrote Exorcist, right? Like, I mean, he can't live that, he could never live that down, even past his death now. And sadly, we lost last year, of course, the director of The Exorcist 2, which I think is the key component of why this worked so well, is because you had William Peter Blatty and you had William, I just forgot his last name. Friedkin, thank you. Who are kind of like brothers in arms in this movie. And I think they were the only two who really believed in it and understood it and knew what it was going to be or could be. And you can tell, especially in their interview together where they're talking about their experience on the film, that these both these men feel equally passionate about this story. And it is arguably, I don't know if I'd call it the scariest film of all times, but it's definitely the most unnerving film I've ever seen in my life. And I love it. It's one of those movies that I'll watch over and over and over again. I've seen it, numerous different times in different ways, different cuts. And frankly, it's just one of those favorites of mine. And it's just powerful. It's one of those movies, especially I feel like if you're feeling, if you feel like if you're having like a crisis of faith, if you're somebody who's like that, and you may need just something to kind of pump you up. I know it's kind of weird to say this, but this movie will get you pumped up a little bit, right? Because this movie kind of paints it as a, how do I want to put this? But there is maybe a light at the end of the tunnel, no matter what, right? Because if the great thing, or the greatest scene in the movie is not even in the theatrical cut; it's in the extended cut, and that is where the two priests are sitting on the stairs and they're just sitting there, and the younger one, Karis, goes to Marin, why her? Why this little girl? Right? Like the question that the entire audience has been asking for the whole movie. And Marin asked back, to get us to despair, to get us to think, God couldn't exist, because why would he let such a thing happen to it? The whole point of the film. And in that, it's like you just have to have faith that, that you can get through this travesty. And I mean, you can apply the exorcism, the whole idea to a kid who has cancer or a kid who has some other kind of disease. It doesn't necessarily have to be a possession, right? It's just that fear of a parent not knowing what's wrong with their child and not being able to fix it. Like, that to me is the scariest part of this book. It doesn't matter if you believe in God or the devil or any of that kind of shit. To me, it's more about that. If you're a parent, this movie will hit you in a way that's different than if you're not. But anyway, I went my long diatribe. Anybody else want to say anything about The Exorcist? Now's the time.
It's a classic.
Your mother's a whore.
Yeah, to think of ourselves as animal and ugly. That's the exact line. There you go. And that's right out of the book.
Soup anymore.
Your mother sucks cocks in hell.
Mm-hmm.
Your mother so sucks in hell.
I thought your mother
Just
wears
so
socks that
sucks.
smell.
That's right.
That too.
That was the PG version. Yeah.
That was, yeah.
Wasn't Spinal Tap in this movie? Oh no, that's
Oh no.
There was.
I
A
do
Spinal
like
Tap
the
in this
Richard
movie.
Pryor. I do love the Richard Pryor bit from SNL. Yes, that was great.
Yeah.
But all right, I don't think anybody else has much to say about it, so we'll keep moving along. Let's keep going here. We're at number 4 on Toxie's list, The Maltese Falcon.
So this is a movie. Humphrey Bogart was a powerful actor and was in a lot of great films, a lot of iconic films. This is one that I saw the movie and then read the book afterwards. It is fairly close. There's some changes into how this works, but it's a wonderful, just classic TV noir, or film noir show. And Humphrey Bogart, Africa Queen, Maltese Falcon, and what's the other one? Casablanca, yeah. Those 3 are what everybody knows him for, but he's in so many other films out from there, and just a wonderful leading actor, and from there. So it's I recommend, if you're looking to do some classic movies, you look at some Humphrey Bogart and watch those.
I saw this for the first time last year, and oh my God, is there some underlying homo stuff in this movie? But I guess it's pretty prevalent in the book.
That could just be you, Tom.
It could just be me.
No. Yes, I was.
What is it? Peter Lorre or whatever is playing like a gay character, and yeah. So like even back in that time, it was Anyway, go ahead.
No, it was something that you want to watch something address a social issue without directly addressing the social issue on film. This is a good study of that. And it takes place in San Francisco, 1941. Sam Spade, who's the Humphrey Bogart character.
Name.
Yeah, Sam Spade.
Problematic name.
He was. I hear he was a javelin thrower in the Olympic team, but whatever.
Oh,
wait! Whoa!
Hey.
But it's a whodunit. It just a detective type story and all that. So all those private investigators come from that time. The Maltese Falcon was one of that was Sam Spade, but there were a ton of private investigator movies out at that time. When this one came out in 41, it came out in 41. So there were a lot of The Thin Man, the Green Hornet was out and stuff in there. The Shadow, all those kind of detective stories from there. And this is probably one of the best films that captures that genre of film.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I think it still holds up pretty well, actually. So
I don't think I've ever seen it, to be honest.
you'd probably like it.
Yeah,
It's
I don't
definitely
know.
got the noir. Like, it's
Mhm.
definitely one of the more prolific noir films of the time. And you got the ultimate MacGuffin with the Maltese Falcon, right? So it's kind of a
Yeah,
an interesting
it's got all
piece.
those plots, so we think that all the MacGuffin stuff is just written. No, it's not. That's stuff that's been in storytelling for a long time.
Yep.
And I encourage you to go out, take a look at some of these films. Shakespeare, there's 7 or 8 plays that were left of his. I'm sure he wrote a ton of them. And the ones that we have are just his best that are worth being saved. Kind of like these. I can tell you that for this film, there are hundreds of films like this.
Yeah.
With different levels of acting and production value and all of that for sure. But they are in this genre. And I love the Thin Man films. With Sidney Powell and what's her name? It's a bad night for me, folks. And then, but this shows that entire genre. See it maybe to expand your movie repertoire into something like this. And the black and white, totally different stuff in black and white. My favorite TV show of all time, Perry Mason. Black and white, most.
Another gay dude.
Good show, yeah.
Starting to notice something about you.
Yeah, I know. Raymond Burr, what a phenomenal man. And was gay.
Hell of an actor, too, yeah.
Hell of an
Great
actor.
actor.
Rear Window. Oh, my God. Nobody could have pulled that off but him. And he was in Godzilla, the remake.
Right.
U.S. version, stuff from there. But,
well, he was in that in 85, so hell yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, they rolled him out for the 85 one, too.
Yeah. Like, literally.
Remember those Perry Mason movies in the 80s?
Yes.
I like those.
They had to make the sets bigger for him, I think.
Well, he did play Ironsides, which was a guy that was in a wheelchair, and it actually caused him health problems. I've done a lot of research on gay guys. Yes, I have. So there you go. Raymond Burr, I thought, was a phenomenal man and a good human being, and nobody had anything bad to say about him. And it's just one of those things, kind of like Rock Hudson. They just kind of left it alone.
Yeah.
And he went off and did his own thing. Had his own wine for a little while.
Ruin the illusion. Yeah.
But what he did for his actors, he kept many of the older actors employed. Didn't want to. The person that played opposite of him in Perry Mason, the Hamilton Burger, I can't remember, Tomlin, he had cancer from smoking, and they got into the Stop Smoking campaign and all that kind of stuff from there. He was.
Raymond Burr was a great Canadian.
Yeah.
I didn't know he's Canadian.
I'm sorry, what? Sorry.
No wonder he was gay.
Canadian. That's right, yeah. Probably
All
from
right,
Alberta. I'm going to.
Oh, is that the gayest place in Canada?
It is now. Hey.
Lots of chaps up here.
Well, it's named after everybody's favorite boyfriend, I thought.
Things get chapped up there all the time, I'm sure.
Ooh.
All right. Yeah. Maybe we should move.
Well, it's cold. You gotta snuggle up with whatever's close. Anyway.
Yeah, sheep and everything.
Well, that's
a
what
bad
Brian
joke.
keeps telling us anyway.
Warm, whatever keeps you warm.
Moving right along here, number 4 on 70s rock bands list is
not my picture.
Porno with Danny Kaye, evidently.
I absolutely
I didn't know Danny
guarantee
Kaye
to the
made
chat,
porn.
I did not pick that movie. Trust me.
Oh my god.
So you'll notice the theme that all of the duplicate
X's,
picks are going to be dealing with the greatest film of all time, White Christmas. So there you go.
I'm dreaming.
Splendid.
Danny
That means
fucking Kaye.
I don't have to talk to.
And what would Danny
that's
Kaye's
also
full name be?
from
This almost made my list.
Christmas Vacation.
That's
Yeah,
my
what a
most
What a
favorite
great
movie.
pick. What
Here's a
great pick.
movie that I just watched recently. So yeah, Price. Here you go, brother, my friend. Glad you made this one.
I actually haven't watched it in a while, but for me, this was one of the early examples of me actually reading a book as a kid and then watching the movie. And
They made us read it in school, actually.
Right. I think that's the reason. I think that I read it for school, and then I knew there was a movie, and I said, well, I want to watch the movie now. And then I think it was one of those early cases where you understand how adaptations are not exactly one-to-one, that there's some differences and things like that. Although the general spirit of the book is in the movie, but I just remember the whole experience and really being impressed with Gregory Peck's performance. And it's a classic. I like the movie and the book.
Well, it was a good way to teach kids how not to be prejudiced and racist at the same time.
You'd be
Right.
surprised because these days they have such a problem teaching this book in school because of the language. They shy away from it because of all the sensitivity now. They can't even say the words. I did a video one time where a lady was practically shedding tears over the fact that she's struggling trying to teach this book to her kids because she didn't want to get fired. And I'm just like, what the hell? Just say
Missed the
this,
point.
yeah, exactly. As we read this book, I will explain to you the context of the time in which it happened and everything else. But this is the way it was.
What's
But they
hilarious
can't do
though
that these days.
is when we were being taught it in school, it had very little to do with the racism and bigotry part because we already knew about that part.
Mm-hmm.
The part that, or should I say that the part that we got warned about from the teacher, at least we had the reason we had to get permission slips or whatever, had everything to do with the rape.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Supposed rape, let's say. It had nothing to do with anything else. It had to just do with that being that part of the story because the
Right.
rest they knew we could handle, right? So it was like, to me, it's like this book is so chock full of things that people should be talking about, and it's one of those books that is great because you can introduce it to somebody anywhere between the ages of 12 and 16 and have a conversation with a kid. But anyway, Price, this is yours. Your pick.
Today they probably don't like it also because Atticus is a white male, so maybe that also doesn't work for them.
Probably.
Single
He's-
father, no less, too, which was also an anomaly.
Right. He would be considered like a white savior or something, or I don't know what. So people would get offended. I know it sounds stupid, but today anything stupid actually it becomes plausible. But that's it. That's my take on it. I think it's a good movie and a good book, and I like the adaptation, and I think it's worthy of being on the list.
Awesome. All right, moving right along. We got number 4, Silence of the Lambs. Brian has to leave this song. This one actually scared me.
I have to go. I'm just kidding. I can't.
He
No,
does
I'm just
not
kidding.
stand for this.
I can't listen to this. No, the poor lambs.
So
This has
I
become
put
a
this,
song about the police. I can't stand what? Sorry.
oh my god.
And
All right.
losing.
As far as adaptations go, I read the book after I watched the movie, and they're practically one for one. I mean, it was amazing that the whole book is. There's a couple of things here and there that aren't, but I mean, just reading the book, I could just see every scene in the movie playing out effectively how it was in the film itself. And so, yeah, it was. It's one of those things where it's like it was the mental equivalent of like walking outside of your house into the outdoors and the temperature not changing, and it just feels kind of weird because you're expecting it to be something different, but then it just feels like it's a continuation of what you were just experiencing. That was what it was like reading the book after seeing the movie. And it just felt everything just fell right into place and was just perfect. I don't think I need to go on about how great the movie is or the performances. I mean, we could be here all day talking about Anthony Hopkins. But yeah, just as far as adaptations go, you probably couldn't get much better from book to movie than this one, because it seems and I don't know, maybe this was Thomas Harris's intent. The book is effectively the screenplay. So, I mean, there you go. I don't have much else to say about the adaptation aspect of it. The movie itself, of course, is a classic, but not so sure about the sequels and or prequels. Aside from aside from the original Manhunter is still pretty good.
I say Manhunter and Red Dragon are both, in my opinion,
it's
pretty
all
good.
right.
Because actually, in my opinion, Red Dragon's the better book, but it's the harder one to adapt. You're right.
Yeah,
This one was like an easier story. It was almost like it's almost like Harris knew what he was doing with this one. I think you're right. Like, because it is almost the same damn story as Red Dragon, just with a few differences as far as like instead of a guy, it's Clarice, and she's a different character in that respect. But other than that, it almost all runs the same. It's kind of the same kind of plot and what do you call it? Well, it's not exactly, but I would say Red Dragon has the better villain, Buffalo Bob or Bill or whatever the fuck he's called. He's not as good, but no, I enjoyed it, and of course it won all the awards. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
This one has the lotion in the basket.
Yes. I don't know if that was in the book. I think it
I
may
don't
have been.
remember
I think
either,
that-
but
I
like
think
that's
that
the
was in
thing is Buffalo Bill is more of a joke, to where like what's his face in Red Dragon
Dollar
is
High. Oh yeah, the Tooth Fairy.
Dollar
Whatever.
Hide
Yeah.
is actually kind of fucking frightening, right? Like he's yeah.
Yeah. Well, you get a lot more interaction with Dollar Hyde and his victims. He's more of an active element to the story rather
Which
than
is why
sort
I
of
like Red
with a
Dragon
side
better
plot.
than Manhunter, because
Mhm.
Manhunter, and I do like it, I do love it, especially for the aesthetic of the time. But the
Mhm.
problem with Manhunter is you don't get introduced to Dollar Hyde till the last quarter of the film.
Yeah.
So all of the stuff that you need to kind of feel bad for this character, or almost find yourself damn near feeling bad for the character, is gone
Mhm.
in the Manhunter version, where it's really well done, I think, in the Red Dragon version. 'Cause it's
Yeah.
spread out a little bit better. But yeah,
Wasn't there a movie I saw with Edward Norton or something?
that's the
That
Red
was Red
Dragon
Dragon.
one.
That
Yep.
was Red Dragon.
I
Yeah, he
can't
plays,
remember.
It's basically the
Graham.
same book. It's the same book that Manhunter's based on. The book is Red Dragon.
Yeah.
But they called the movie Manhunter. And then
And I
years
think
later,
Anthony
after,
Hopkins was in it, right?
yeah, they redid it with Anthony Hopkins, because Anthony Hopkins wasn't in the original one.
Right.
It was
But he was older.
yeah, but they tried to make him look a little younger. Yeah, it didn't
Right,
work out.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Brian Cox played
Brian Cox, thank you. I couldn't think of his name.
Yeah, he played Hannibal in the Manhunter, which I really liked. He was only in the movie very briefly, but I really liked Brian Cox in there.
See,
and
yeah,
Johnny Skinwalker says I prefer William. I thought William Peterson was a better choice for Will Graham than Edward Norton, but that's
they're
just
two
me.
different versions of the character in a sense, because
Yeah.
like the Peterson version, you actually get to see the Will Graham who goes through the serial killer motions, right? Because that's kind of the
Yeah.
cool part about his character, is he can think like a serial killer. They don't
Yes.
really get into that as much in Red Dragon. I mean, they bring it up, they have the similar beats and scenes, but the Red Dragon version, they add a little bit more to the whole weight of him and Hannibal than they do in the Manhunter version. Literally, Hannibal is such a side character that there's one scene that they have where they talk on the fucking phone.
Yes.
Like you would not normally do that in a movie, right? Like, even if it's that way in the book, you're like, no, you got to get them in the room together, right? Like, yeah. Anyway, we've talked too long for about this, but yeah, great pick, and I'm glad you made your list, because it did not get to be on mine, unfortunately, because so many good choices, so many good choices. We've got my number 4, speaking of, and 70s number 4. So this is why he had triple X's or quadruple Google X's. It's one big pile of shit. That's right. Jurassic Park. Arguably one of those films that's almost better than the novel. And the only reason that is because the novel is just so in depth into the science of it all.
Yeah.
That I think the movie does a great job explaining the science of it in like that little 3-minute cartoon they have. It's like that helps clear a lot of things up. And granted, there's some scenes that they didn't make it their way into the movie that I wish they had, but do make their way into other films like Jurassic Park 3 and some other stuff. And
I picked
honestly,
this photo on purpose.
I figured you did, because you don't like
Yeah.
this.
No. It's the shit list, and that's the.
Oh, I thought that.
Yeah.
I didn't think you liked this one for some reason.
Oh, I can't stand Jurassic Park.
That's what I was going to say. I
Doesn't
thought
mean
you
it
said
wasn't a
that
good adaptation of the book, but I can't
Well,
stand
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Well, and the reason I think it is a really good adaptation has more to do with the casting, right? Like the casting's brilliant. The swapping of the girl and the boy as far as the age and their actual what they do in the story, I thought was better than what it works in the book. Because it makes more sense, because little boys are always obsessed with dinosaurs, right? Like that to me I thought was better. And just the whole movie itself, and the fact that it was this leap forward in technology, and we were able to finally see dinosaurs photorealized on screen for the first time that didn't look like, stop motion, which, not that we had a problem with stop motion for the most part, but it was just something cool and new. And I remember the thing that sticks out most about this movie, and then I'll turn it over to Brian, is that this is one of the few films I've gotten to see in the theaters with my dad, and he didn't even really want to see it. And when he did finally sit down and watch it, it was like watching my dad turn into a kid again, because he could not believe the moment that brachiosaur comes on screen. He was Alan Grant, right? Like he was just like, holy shit, how did they do that? He kept saying it out loud. And I just loved it watching with my dad, because it took me back to being a kid with that awe of seeing something like that for the first time. So yeah, to me, that's why this movie will always have a special place for me. Not to mention, it's just a really well done adaptation, and Steven brought to the table some of his best game here. So yeah, go ahead.
Well, Michael Crichton is one of my all-time favorite authors, and he is one of the ones I could have had on my list twice. I had to choose between this or the Andromeda Strain. I finally went for this just because freaking big dinosaurs. The spectacle of it, but in actual fact, you mentioned the complexity of book. I think the movie does remain fairly faithful to it, other than the fact it does have to change a lot of things to get it on the screen because there's a lot of words in that book. So yeah, it's one of the good instances of adaptation where the source material is not ignored, but is better presented visually. Perhaps they skimped a little bit on the ethical stuff and the philosophical stuff, but still big dinosaurs. What else can you say? So yeah, great, love it. They did very well. They did Michael proud. And that's about all I gotta say about that one.
The round table talk in the movie is great, and it really does a lot of work to try to do the heavy lifting of the more moral quandaries the book brings up, but in a much brief way, because obviously we're talking about a movie here.
Good point. They really compressed that stuff pretty well, given they focused more on the action and adventure, quite rightly, because that's why some of Michael Crichton's other movies, whether adapted or original screenplays, could be a little cold because of that. But this one isn't. Anyway.
No, that's a good point, and let's keep moving along. We have number 4 on Tox's list. I'm surprised he actually picked this one, but go for it, Tox.
So I'm a big Dune fan, and I mean there are others that know the lore and everything better and all it from there, but it's something that sticks out from my childhood, something my father and I liked. And the first one, Dune Part 1 in 2021, I said it then when it came out, I'll say it now. It is the greatest adaptation of a sci-fi book that I have ever seen. And to me, the soundtrack worked. It showed what I needed to do. The portrayal of Lady Jessica, Nerd Cookie, and I actually disagree on this. She didn't think it was that good. I think this was great. I thought she did a phenomenal job, and I didn't notice Leia Kynes in the race swap and all that kind of stuff. And if I didn't know that it was going to happen beforehand, it would have been something that I wouldn't have cared about. My only take back from this is Josh Brolin was extreme. Next to Zendaya in the second film, but Josh Brolin in Dune as Gurney Halleck was the worst miscast I have ever seen in a film.
Should have been Danny Kaye.
No.
Fucking
the 1984 film had it right with Patrick Stewart. You needed a classically trained actor, singer, because the troubadour, that's who Gurney Halleck is, and a master swordsman, master at etiquette, master at being with the ladies and being with the guys. That's part of in the book too, and all of this stuff, singing, and he's teaching Paul how to be a whole man and around and the swordsman and all that stuff. And how it comes out, but I got this film. It made a big difference for me. The first 30 minutes is the greatest 30 minutes of any film I've ever seen in my life. From there, so outside of Blazing Saddles and the fart scene, but that's different.
That's classic cinema. So
that's classic cinema. I don't know if this is going to be classic, but it is my favorite book, and it goes off the rails in part 2. But in this part to where they get to, it's much, much closer to the book. And where this part 2 is 80%, maybe 70, 80%, this to me was 95% of what I would want to see out of Dune and stuff in there. So
no, it's hard to argue with that because that's kind of the way I am too with it. It's like the first part, fine. It's they didn't stick the landing on part 2, unfortunately. Yeah. So anybody else on Dune? This was just more of a letdown for me than anything now because I was so hopeful for the second part.
Two is what it is. Not a lot we can do about it.
No, unfortunately.
I still like those movies. I just felt that we had too much Zendaya in the second one. But aside from that, I think it was okay.
Well, and this is where Tox and I agreed. The deviations from the book, and we get it. You can't always one-to-one a book, but the problems with the part 2 is that it makes absolutely no sense, especially when he was so faithful in the first half.
Yeah,
right?
I
Like, how do
agree
you
with
go from being so faithful in the first half to completely twisting things in the second is beyond me. But anyway,
They didn't want to show that Zendaya is capable of having a child or something. I don't know.
Well, don't get me started. I'll go on an hour
yeah,
about that one.
Yeah.
that's a
All
whole
right.
nother broadcast. Yeah. Moving on, we've got number 3, another one from Danny
What?
fucking K.
Oh no.
What?
Yeah.
So
That surprises me.
Yeah, 70s picks a lot of Danny Kaye films.
Brian.
I don't
Danny
know.
Kaye.
Danny Kaye
The
brings
pipes,
the ruckus to
pipes
the
are
ladies.
calling.
Of
Yeah,
a
perfect.
sheep Christmas.
Hello.
I'm sorry. Whoa.
All right, and another one. Holy crap.
No. Oh God. I don't know what happened here.
I don't know how Danny's grabbing a boob there or something, maybe. I don't know.
Well, maybe he
Whoa.
is. Maybe he is.
Danny boy.
We don't know
Danny
where
boy.
his other hand is. And
That's
he looks
true.
like he found something exciting.
And she looks happy.
She
looks
does.
very happy.
Yeah.
Danny Kaye was a phenomenal man.
Mhm.
All right, number 3 on Scribe's list, The Hunt for Red October from Tom
Yeah.
Clancy.
The greatest film ever made. John McTiernan directing it, Mr. Die Hard and Predator. Sean Connery, Alec Baldwin as the perfect Jack Ryan. The best Jack Ryan that ever was to Jack Ryan, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, this would have been higher up on my list, except for one. Admittedly, though it's the greatest movie ever made, the Hunt for Red October film has one fatal omission in narrative and plot that the book has, and that is Ramius's motivation for doing what he's doing. They just kind of skim over that in the movie. It would have taken all of like one line of dialogue somewhere to clear it up, but they just it's the one flaw they put in the film to not offend God with its perfection. That's my thinking of it. But yeah, The Hunt for Red October, probably one of Tom Clancy's greatest novels, next to maybe The Sum of All Fears, or if you really like, just basically a Punisher novel without remorse. But
Isn't Alec Baldwin in this film?
Yes, he is. He doesn't shoot anybody though. Well, no, I take that back. Actually, he does at the very end. At the very end, I don't want to give anything away, but he does actually use a gun by the end of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, The Hunt for Red October really sets up Tom Clancy's it really is the perfection of his craft at that point in setting up an event that feels like it's taking place in the real world. His personal knowledge of submarines and naval warfare and everything come to the fore here. He gives a speech at, I think it was either the NSC or maybe the CIA or something. You can find it on YouTube, where he talks about the inspiration for this book was based on a real life event that took place. And he's got some amazing backstories to the whole thing. But it really helps set up the way Clancy crafts a story, where you see the psychology of these characters interacting with the gigantic wheels of government, and miscommunications that start off as tiny things turn into major consequences for entire fleets or nations or whatever else. He's so good at it. The Sum of All Fears. If you guys haven't read the novel, The Sum of All Fears, definitely give that a look. But as far as adaptations go,
I like Harrison Ford more than Alec Baldwin, to be honest.
Well, I mean, at some point, if you want to move back to Russia, you're more than welcome to. But Alec Baldwin is the best Jack Ryan. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. I'm sorry. See, Harrison Ford was completely miscast. He was already Indiana Jones. He was already Han Solo. Jack Ryan needs to not be an action hero. That's his whole thing, is that he's an analyst. He is not built for action. And when he does end up doing something in an action mode in the novels, it's only in the most dire and necessary of circumstances. That's the whole shtick. When you have Han Solo, Indiana Jones there, it just ruins the whole character as far as I'm concerned.
I respect your opinion, and I can understand where you're coming from. But for me, Harrison Ford is Harrison Ford, especially where it's not Harrison Ford today. It's Harrison Ford still when he's on top of his game. And I would take Harrison Ford over Alec Baldwin any day of the week in any role.
He's less likely to shoot you, but he might kill you in a plane crash.
And that's true.
But yeah, so the book, there's a few key things that are taken out of the book as compared to the movie, but everything you need for the crux of the novel's excellence is in the film, except for the fact they did make Captain Ramius far more attractive an individual in the film using Sean Connery than how he's described in the novel. In the novel, he's like this portly little semi-balding guy or whatever, and then Sean Connery comes on with his hairpiece and his cropped silver and everything, and it's just perfect. And who cares if his accent is not Russian? He can't, Sean Connery could be hired to play a Spanish conquistador and he'd still be able to pull it off. It's fine.
You've seen Highlander as well.
There shall be only
yeah,
one.
I have.
Yeah,
anyway, so yes, best film ever made. That's my pick.
Moving on,
Scribe
we've got.
Hey, shush.
I'm sorry. What? Oh, Scribe lets us see his weakness in film.
He's an Alec Baldwin lover.
What did I say at the beginning about not ragging on anybody for their choice? Oh yeah, sorry about that.
Anyway, we've got my number 3, and this was an oddball one. And I mainly picked this because I knew this is where I was getting to. Like, I got to put some on here that other people don't have. And I'm probably the only person on the panel who actually read this book. And I read it like right after the original film came out. And talk about a culture shock in like what the movie is compared to what the book is. Like, this is where Robert Zemeckis and crew literally just took the idea of what the book is and made their own thing.
Like, yes, Forrest Gump is a complete asshole in the book.
Yes, and not only that, he's I mean, the speech, the way he speaks, which is funny, is exactly the way he speaks in the film. And Winston Groom wrote it out phonetically that way. Like, so that part's kind of cool. So like when you're sucked into the book, it's like you're still like in the world of Forrest Gump, but like Tox is right. It's a completely different take on the character. He's more or less, it's not like he's got this sweet-natured side to him where he just happens to stumble in events and, do things that are right just because on an accident. It's more like things just kind of happen to him in the story. Like, it's just kind of there. It is a comedy. It's more so of a comedy than the movie itself.
Right. There's no innocence in the character in the book that they put in the character in the film. That's my point. To Forrest Gump. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it sounds like you've actually read it, Tox, and I'm surprised that somebody else has.
I've read the book. Yeah, I've read the book.
Yeah, so I'd love to hear what you have to say about it real quick, too, because, I'm of the opinion this is one of those rare occurrences where the movie is 10 times better than the book.
Yeah. The book, they took the story, thought it was cool, and they made a better film. That's it. The book is okay. And it's everything Tom, he's, to me, he's an asshole, but I mean, and it's hard to read with the phonetic stuff that goes out there like that, because the author's trying to make sure that you understand the accent, and the accent in the movie actually came from the kid that he got to play him. Kid was from deep Mississippi, and Tom Hanks goes, "Well, how would you say it?" So the kid just said it, and that's how Tom got the accent for Forrest Gump the rest of the film. And the accent does kind of sell the movie. You just don't get it. From a printed word, it's very hard to force the internal dialogue and the diction and the accents in somebody's head. And when you try and force it, makes it hard to read. So this book, even though it wasn't that huge, I found Dune easier to read than this. I had to pick this up and put this down a lot to come back to it because it hurt. Right?
I never returned to it again. Yeah.
Yeah. And after I put it down and read it once, I'm like, I'm done with that.
Somebody stole the book from me and I never bought it again. I didn't care.
Yeah. You can have it. I'm not doing this.
And yes, Jenny is in the book, Davina. And not only is she in the book, she's a bigger bitch and whore in the book than she is in the movie.
Yep. It's
actually like practically flat out rapes Forrest in one scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, isn't the alternative or description of this movie a usurious drug addict takes advantage of a poor, simple guy over decades or something?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And then she takes off on him until he hits it big, and then she shows up at his door when she's dying of AIDS, basically. Yeah.
Yep.
But no, like, and I almost, because here's the thing. It was between, and this has nothing to do with the order of the list, but more to do with, I wanted to pick one where that is definitely better than the book, where the movie is definitely better than the book by leaps and bounds. And the only other one I was close to was Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but Who Censored Roger Rabbit is still a great fucking book. but they are just so worlds apart that I was like, I was really struggling because I wanted to put that on my list too, but it's like, no, I love the book so much and it's such a different thing that I don't think it's fair. In this case, I think it's a better comparison because you're right. Like almost all the same events happen, or at least a facsimile thereof, or a different version of, right? Like the whole football thing, he plays football in college and stuff in the movie, but in the book, it's I think in high school. And then he goes to
It's
I
a
think the
good
Vietnam stuff's in there,
chronological.
and
Yeah, it's
yeah,
a good chronological adaptation, but the characters are drastically changed.
and the events are switched around and stuff to where it's actually a likable movie, right? Like the only part that sticks out for me in the book that I actually thought was funny, that I thought would have belonged in the movie, and then I'll be done talking about it because we got to keep moving, is the one bit where he's in college, or no, he did go to college in the book too. He's in college and he's driving around with a friend, and they get a flat tire and they change the tire, and as they're changing the tire, the lug nuts fall down into the storm drain. And the guy's like freaking out, and Forrest says, well, why don't you just take one lug nut off of each of the other tires and put 3 of them on one, and then each tire will have 3 lug nuts on it. And he punches him for being smarter than him.
Right.
That I thought that was the only thing in the book that's not in the movie that probably would have fit. Otherwise, you're right. In the rest of the thing, Forrest is just kind of like a lump on a log who just happens to have shit happen around him. You know, it's just kind of weird. But anyway, moving right along, we have, and this is one I'm not surprised showed up on somebody's list. It also is number 3 on 70's list. So Tox and 70's, take it away. LA Confidential.
So as a film, this is a great film. You've got Kim Basinger being great. You've got Guy Pearce being great. You've got Russell Crowe being great, right? And the actor that shall not be named, also great. They were all phenomenal in this film, and it's close to the book. I'd say it's 70% around there, because you're never going to be able to get these books all the way up there and stuff from there. But if you haven't seen this film, I would suggest that you take a little time and watch this film, and just some powerhouse performances all the way around. And
this is probably Kim Basinger's best role.
Probably her best role in this. And she was full force. I think she was with Alec Baldwin at the time. You hear gunshots? I'm not hearing any. But
why are you in Chicago?
Yes. Yeah, I'm in Chicago. But yeah, Titanic was not the best movie of the year. This was the best movie of that year.
Yeah,
it wasn't even the best movie of the century. It was nowhere near. It wasn't even one of the best 1,000 movies of the century.
No, it wasn't.
But, it was a movie for women.
Yeah.
Oh, Jack.
Anyway,
I can't. There's no room for you on this door. Get off! She's kicking him. I'm like, whatever. Yeah, I mean, Titanic was a spectacle. But Brian, go ahead. This is one of the
outstanding movies of all time. I don't read a lot of crime fiction, but I do read a lot of James Ellroy, Elmore Leonard, some other people like that, and I love the James Ellroy LA Quartet, particularly the seedy underbelly of LA, throwing in a lot of real events and characters in the timelines of things that actually happened.
I haven't seen this in a long time, but it kind of, from my memory, is it kind of reminiscent of like Chinatown, that kind of a tone?
It's a little bit of that, yeah. I mean, it's a very colorful noir, if you want to call it
grittier,
that.
Yes, but yeah, noir. More noir.
Yeah. This is a noir film in color, yeah.
But it does, yes, but in color, and it does adapt the novel very well. Obviously, like all things taken to the screen, there are certain omissions and compressions and so on, but it actually, to me, is a fantastic representation. It brought those characters to life and imbued them with a lot of power and agency, and the performances are just outstanding. I mean, because 2 Australians are in the leads, and you wouldn't know it, you know. Just
because Guy Pearce is Australian, right?
Yeah, just so good. It's
but Guy Pearce in terms was really good in Count of Monte Cristo.
Well, in terms of adaptations, it's a great adaptation, in my opinion. It doesn't do anything but enhance or complement the original novel. So
this is the poster child, pun intended, of this list, in my opinion.
Yeah, I could watch this movie, and I've watched it a dozen times at least. I could watch it every year.
Oh yeah, this
without
is a
fail.
good example of a film that gets brought up when they say the '90s were fucked when it comes to the Oscars.
Mm.
Because this isn't even a Weinstein picture, or Titanic wasn't even a Weinstein picture in that year. That was pure politics.
That was
Pure
spectacle.
fucking politics. Yeah,
That's all it
spectacle
was.
politics. It was just like the only reason Barbie got nominated this year, but that would be like if Barbie fucking won. Right? Like it's like
Yes.
what the fuck?
Well, Ron Howard was big at the time. You had multiple films that he directed that were winning Oscars, and the actors winning
Yeah.
Oscars. Apollo 13, and just name them, right? Ron Howard was huge at that time, right? So Titanic was going to get it.
Or do you
with
mean James Cameron?
James Cameron. Yeah, sorry, Ron Howard.
Yeah.
Two totally different people.
Yeah, two
but
totally
James
different
Cameron was
guys,
just, yeah,
It's
he was
all right.
power at that time.
The other thing,
You're drunk. We'll let it go.
I'm surprised that Kim Basinger married Alec Baldwin. I've always been disappointed that she went
Why
that
do we gotta
route.
keep bringing up Alec Baldwin tonight? What the fuck?
Fuck you! That's my name.
Ah, shit, he's here.
Watch out.
Everybody duck.
yeah, I don't
Oh,
have that one.
That was
Hang
a
on.
piss poor shot, Alec. What the fuck? Oh no, here he's got with the oh,
Now he's got the rest of it. Oh God.
So while we're still on this movie, briefly though, we had the Bros thing a few weeks ago, best bro movies, bromance movies.
Oh,
These
that's
guys are
right.
not in a bromance, not at the start, but all three of these very different male characters end up having a bond in some way, particularly the two Aussies.
Interesting.
And it is a very, we're talking about Kim Basinger and how great she is. It's a very masculine movie. And the way that these guys end up teaming up to take down the bad guys, and their different
They're from
approaches
three
to
different
that.
worlds. Yeah,
Yeah.
three different worlds have three
But-
different motivations.
If you'd not touched by the Guy Pearce Russell Crowe ending, then I don't know what would do it
Yeah,
to you.
yeah.
You know, yeah.
It's a great film.
Yeah, I want to see this, but I'm waiting for the 4K. I'm like, I think if I hold out long enough, we'll get a 4K of it, and I can just wait.
I have to rewatch it. I haven't seen it in a while, but it's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. All right, let's
It's
keep
classic,
moving. We're
all-time classic.
a Catch-22 from
What is it, me
Brian.
again? Jeez, I can't do. Tired all this talking. It's tiring. No. So, Catch-22, for those who've never read it, is a classic, and it is, I mean that, it is an absolute classic satirical black comedy anti-war book. Not so much anti-war, but
Drink
anti.
again.
I know, anti the people that are running the war, and the absurdity of everything, including the bureaucracy of the military. Written on Joseph Heller started writing it not long after the Second World War. Didn't finish it till towards the end of, I think, 61. Published it, and the movie came about 10 years later. And it's an insanely mind-bending book. It's one of these books they said it could probably never be filmed. Well, there's been a few like that, Naked Lunch and Altered States and stuff. I think they've all had pretty good movie representations in the end. This one was filmed excellently. I think the main differences between this and the novel were the novel was much more cut up in that it jumped between times, whereas the movie is much more linear, but it still contains the same heights of absurdity. I mean, for those, I'm sure everybody knows what a Catch-22 is, which is that, in this instance, in the movie and in the novel, it's, well, if you're crazy, you can be grounded and you don't have to fly more missions. But an airman would have to be crazy to fly more missions. And if he would be crazy, he'd be unfit. But if he refuses to fly more missions, this would indicate he's sane, which would mean he'd have to fly more missions. So they're in an impossible situation. That's basically what the whole story is about, the absurdity of it all. And there's no end in sight for these guys either. And it's really placed somewhere where you don't really know where it is. It could be the Mediterranean, never says, but it's, in terms of adaptations, it's an extremely good adaptation of a very, very complex novel, but not complex in the terms of reading, just the ideas that are in it. It's a really good novel to read if you've ever read it. It reads brilliantly. But the movie, fantastic. And what a cast. Knockout cast. Alan Arkin is just perfect. And even Paul Simon's partner, Art Garfunkel, isn't so bad, but Anyway, I love
That's
it.
what shocked me when I saw this. It's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, that was Art Garfunkel.
It's Arthur Garfunkel. But yeah, it's funny, but in a funny kind of a, oh my God, really? Kind of way. But
And this is what made our Simon and Garfunkel break up, because Paul Simon's like, Art got too into his fucking movies and
he
shit.
did, yeah. But yeah.
See, that's the funny thing is everybody's like, oh, he just dumped him because he was the more talented one. It's like, no, Art was the one who fucked it up.
Yeah, but if you've never read it, read it. If you've never seen the movie, watch it. They're both classics.
Paul would say that Art was the better singer. So we all know who the songwriter was. So.
Yeah.
Right.
But Art was a good singer.
Art, the voice of an angel.
He did. Just like Will Ferrell. Anyway, moving on. Thank you for that, Brian. I got to catch this one. I've not seen Catch 22 in a long time. See what I did there?
It's great.
Yeah. Another one I'm hoping for a 4K eventually so I can...
Characters like Milo Minder.
I might have the regular.
Major is my favorite. The squad operations officer. Major.
Yeah. Major. Yeah. All right. We're going to keep moving along here. We've got another triple double X. Poor Price.
I'm dreaming.
What can I do?
Christmas, Danny K.
All right, Scribelight's coming in with the Sci-Fi Channel version of the Dune adaptation, and I got to agree with you on this one. This is probably the best of the bunch.
Yeah, I would have.
Yeah, this is the most faithful adaptation of the book. Obviously, just like with any other production of something as complex as Dune, there's consolidations and sacrifices and things. And given the time and given the budget, it's amazing what they were able to pull off and the world they were able to create. And it really does showcase. If you guys haven't seen the Sci-Fi Channel miniseries, you can find it on YouTube. You can find the whole thing. It's not exactly the best quality.
I've seen it.
You can find it on YouTube. The best version of it, as far as I'm concerned, for physical media is the collector's edition DVD that was released years and years and years ago, which I have a copy of, thankfully. I don't think they publish it anymore. The Blu-ray's all right. I think there's better features and it looks better on the DVD version. But the casting in this, I mean, Ian McNeice as the Baron Harkonnen is just unforgettable. It exceeds the Baron from the 1984 version by leaps and bounds. Much more theatrical, much more Shakespearean. I mean, the whole thing plays out far more like a soap opera in a lot of ways for the sake of the medium and everything. But the representation of the characters, the development of Paul. I mean, Alec Newman, who plays Paul in this, he goes through a physical and attitude transformation during the course of the production. Like you see him start off much more brash, much more, pompous teenager. And by the end, he is a warrior cult leader. I mean, it really does show in the performance and the physicality. John Hurt as Leto is just so great and stoic, brings such gravitas to the role. And you talked earlier about Josh Brolin as Gurney Halleck. Next to Patrick Stewart, I don't think you can do better than P.H. Moriarty as Gurney Halleck in this one. He did a great job. Great job.
I have to agree with you. This was a much better adaptation of the books than any other film.
Yeah.
But it shows you that there are just certain books you have to have a much longer, much bigger canvas.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
and
sure.
This is one of those. Yeah.
Sure.
And this is the version you want, Scribelight. It has all the DVD features plus the Blu-ray versions of the films. Because, I agree with you. The first movie suffers a little bit in the HD version, but Children of Dune looks amazing in HD. So,
I got Children of Dune on the Blu-ray collection. But a book like this, it needs the real estate of more than a 2-hour long film, which is why I was just amazed, and I won't go too much into it, at the major changes and, as far as I'm concerned, mistakes in the crafting of the newest version of Dune on film. I won't go into too much. It'll be here forever, but this miniseries, for all of its obvious limitations, now that we look at it with certain special effects and things, you were able to see the delineation of nations in the costuming, in the set design, in the acting. It really did show and give just a glimpse, as much as you could in a production like this for a book as it comes from, at just the absolute scope and complexity of the universe that Herbert wove together to make this all work. And so, yeah, if you haven't seen this yet, I cannot recommend it more highly. And I just got to say, I was torn as to what to put on either. This almost made my number one, but my number one can't really be denied. I almost put Invasion of the Body Snatchers on here because I thought that's pretty good. But I put Invasion of the Body Snatchers on a bunch of other things before, so I kind of dodged that one. So, but yeah, 1956 Invasion of the Body Snatchers, great adaptation.
Well,
but
and to be fair, this movie, the new part 2, this list is actually a couple weeks old because things happened in between there that we didn't get to do it. But yeah, this is part of the whole inspiration for doing this list was Dune.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, so again, my number 2 on my list, but maybe number 1 in my heart overall as far as adaptations are concerned. Check out the Sci-Fi Channel miniseries if you're at any at all a fan of Dune, or you just don't want to take the time to read the book. Definitely the better adaptation to watch.
See, and yeah, I would actually. I mean, I agree with you. And if I was going to make any of these on my list, it would be Children of the Dune. That was the one I would have picked. But because I thought that they did an amazing job with that. But anyway. Yeah, glad it made somebody's list though. So let's keep moving along here. We got number 2 on my list, and Price is number 2, Goodfellas. So yeah, I think I also had another one here, but I cheated, and we didn't talk about it yet. So I'm gonna let you talk about Goodfellas.
I make up for that.
Is it on somebody else's? I was gonna say I think it's on somebody
else's list, so I make up for that. Yeah.
Okay, I thought so. Okay, so here we go. Goodfellas. Look. I'll say this quick because I've talked about this movie enough. It's one of my favorite movies. In fact, my old setup that I used to have upstairs, I have 2 posters that face me. One is Jaws, and one is Goodfellas. So those are just the 2 movies that I always like. They gravitate whenever I see them on TV. If no matter where they are in the movie, I have to finish watching it. I think Goodfellas is fucking poetry. Like, I can't express that enough. I think the movie is a perfect film from beginning to end. Ray Liotta's narration throughout the film, the way he talks to us at the audience and stuff, breaking the fourth wall, is just amazing. And the way this movie flows, it is not natural, but it flows in a way like you're like, holy shit, how did that long just go past me that fast? Because the movie starts and the whole rest of the movie feels like you're still in the opening of the film. But yet you're like 2 hours in and you're like, shit, this is almost over. It was just getting started. It's just one of those movies where you're just like, it just pulls you in and you're sucked into this guy's life, regardless of what you may think of him. It is probably one of the best examinations of the gangster lifestyle that nobody will ever get to look at because they never get close to this kind of life. And it doesn't candy coat anything. It's not a glamorized version of it. It shows you the nitty gritty. It shows you the highs and the lows. Brilliant fucking film. Scorsese's best picture ever. Go ahead. Take it away, Price.
It's really hard to follow everything you said because I agree with pretty much everything you just said. It's just a great movie. There's no point in this movie that you think, he didn't do this well. He could have done this better. You never think anything. You click play and you watch the whole thing. And it's that type of experience. And you're right. I don't know if Scorsese has done a better movie than this one. This has to be his masterpiece and one of the best movies ever made, period.
100%.
Yeah, and I see people asking about Scarface, which is actually a movie I always had to the right of me. I couldn't always see it, but if I looked over to the right, it was there.
I like Scarface a lot, but it's
good fun, but it's more pretentious and it's a bit more.
It's over the top fun, but it's not the same as this thing. This thing really delivers the story, the way the story unfolds, the storytelling, whatever you want to call it, is just so superior here. Scarface is just a fun roller coaster ride of sorts.
It's a very De Palma movie, isn't it? I mean,
it is kind of weird. It is kind of a Scorsese doing De Palma in a way. You're not wrong, but it works in his own way, and it became that. That's why I like this, because you got that trilogy of films, which I always kind of hold together. Is you have this, Casino, and Wolf of Wall Street, which are kind of that, which we talked about earlier, that real life look into the world of crime. And yes, Captain Palsy, I can actually read. And believe it or not, this is another one of those that they managed to squeeze as much as they could out of the book into the movie, into the running time. Like there's not a lot left out. I mean, there's some fat here and there. There's some observations and ins and outs and little and more detailed elements that are not in the movie. But it's one of those points where you're like, I don't mind the differences. to me, I mean, again, I maybe it's because I saw the film before I read the book too. That may make a difference, but yeah, it's a great adaptation. So yeah, and yes, it is a true story, Lasher. Yep.
I will say that Ray Liotta,
yeah,
is why this film works.
Oh, absolutely. Well, the trio, right? Like the trio right there.
The trio is there, right? But if they don't have Ray Liotta in that role, this doesn't work.
No. Oh, I agree with you, 100%. And I mean, he's way more likable than the real guy was anyway. That's the thing.
Much better looking too.
Oh yeah, there's tons of interviews out there with the real guy, and you can be like, yeah, I can totally see why they went that direction.
Yeah.
But all right, let's keep moving along then. We've got number 1 on Toxic Man Flu's list. Gone with the Wind.
That's not White Christmas.
I know.
Well, he asked about songs and books.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll accept songs, but I think we wanted to keep it to just strictly
can I
books.
do that? And
wasn't White Christmas based on a Hallmark card? You could have got away with that.
That's true. No, White Christmas was based on a play.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, a musical. This is still the highest grossing movie of all time. You can talk about the Star Wars phenomenon all you want. Talk about Lord of the Rings, whatever. No movie has ever had the spectacle and the phenomenon that this film had. At more than half the people in the United States at that time saw this film. All right. This has to be the greatest book adaptation of all time. Is it 100% of the book? No. Did Margaret Mitchell not write the other book after this and not want to be part of any filmmaking or any stuff ever again? Because I'm convinced that she was autistic? Yes. But this, it just, from movie history, this has got to be one of the top 5 films of all time. The cast, Rhett Butler was perfect in this, and Olivia de Havilland was perfect in this. The trailblazing that it had, the spectacle that it had, the release that it had, and just the longevity. And yeah, I read the book after the film, but that's only because I come way after both when they came out. But this is, again, one of my mother's favorites. It's not at her top. She's more Sound of Music, Fantasia. Fantasia is her favorite film of all time. This was probably my grandmother's favorite film. But I mean, what can you say? It's Gone with the Wind.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Yep.
No, I can't argue with this one. I mean, I'm not a big fan of it, but
I've
it's
never
one of those
seen
like
it.
Wizard of Oz. You really never seen it?
I've never
it's one of
seen
those
it.
movies that it's kind of worth watching, and you'd probably even actually enjoy it more than I did. Well, I was kind of forced to watch it by a girlfriend of mine at the time, and this was like 20 years ago. So I mean, I have it. I haven't watched it since. I'm sure I could enjoy it now more so for the, the cinematic.
If this comes out in theater, I would say go see it.
It's
It's
a very lengthy movie. It has a lot of length.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's basically the Terminator 2 of its
doesn't
time,
have
right?
girth though.
It's got some girth, but mainly
it's like the Terminator 2 of its time, though. See, that's the thing.
Oh wow!
If you go swimming with the movie,
okay, now what? Scribe's like, what the fuck do you mean Terminator? Now, I now don't think you're going to see like a killer robot from the future who's looks like Rhett Butler or something like that. No,
that'd be awesome. What are you talking about, man? That sounds amazing.
What I mean is the technical level of it, the price.
Gone with the Skynet. I can see it now.
Because much like Terminator 2 was in 1991, the most expensive film ever made, Gone with the Wind was the most expensive film ever made in its time. Much like with Terminator 2 in 1991, broke the mold when it came to special effects, and there's a lot more special effects in the movie than you realize. Same thing with Gone with the Wind. Movie broke the mold with special effects, a lot more special effects than you realize in the film. Now, and then again, they did burn down an entire set, but still.
Right.
Anyway.
Right.
Go ahead.
Well, yeah, but this is still the highest grossing film of all time.
And then you have that aspect to it as well, yeah.
I mean, if you do it in inflationary dollars, it's not even close. Because number of people available to see the film in the U.S. and the fact that there was not an international market for films at the time, not really. No, not like now.
Not like now. And see, the other thing is for international films, a lot of times, see, the difference between now and then, even up to like 20, 30 years ago, is you had regional like companies that would take on distributing films as opposed to like Warner Brothers or Disney themselves. Those were two of the big boys who actually did do international distribution for a lot of years.
Right.
Up until
there just
recent
wasn't
years,
a lot of infrastructure until, probably the last 30 years.
well, a great example is Disney did a lot of distribution outside the US, but like for years Paramount didn't do outside distribution. So like movies like God, I just had it in my head and I just forgot it. Movie Popeye with Robin Williams in the US, released by Paramount. Outside the US, it's released by Disney.
Yep. Because Disney had
Same thing with
nobody else
Fox and
did.
Fox had a lot of deals with Universal to where Universal back in the day didn't do a lot of external stuff, but they did through Fox and stuff like that and other things like that. It was just the way it used to be back then. Now they all do it themselves and they're all conglomerated anyway. But no, I have no idea on a national scale what this movie sold for tickets. But you're 100% right in the US North American scale.
Apparently, in the UK, Gone with the Wind had 35 million box office tickets sold in its
Holy shit.
cycles. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's more than the population
over a number of years, of course. Over a number of years. But that's the only way you could see it then, by reruns.
Right. Well, and this has been one of the most re-released films of history too. That's the other thing.
35 million isn't bad.
And during those days, cinema was different. They could just say, "Okay, we're releasing it now again for another year," and everybody would go see it again. There wasn't home media or anything like that. But even though it benefited from the time that it was released, it is probably the biggest movie of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, it's hard to argue that as far as the financial and just how big it was at the time it was put together as a production.
It's like trying to compare NBA stars of today to NBA stars of 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Or you could compare it to Endgame or something like that. I mean, Star Wars is another good comparison.
And all that stuff. But if this movie came out with the kind of hype and all that stuff that it did then, now, it would have out-earned all those movies put together.
Yeah, people like to compare it with Titanic, but I don't think that's a good.
It's not even close.
Scale.
Titanic isn't even close to what this was.
Yeah.
So, but with that, Tom,
I was gonna say, I think you're gonna slip out. Thank you so much, Tox, for all your help every week on the show. We appreciate it.
Yeah, this was a
and
great.
Hopefully, you feel better, man.
I will. I'll be better on. But thanks so much, and
feel better, man.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.
Great list, by the way. Take care, sir.
Stuff. All right, bye.
While we have a moment in here, I'm gonna grab the member chat and super chat we got here. JB's Spooky Reviews. Woo! He's been a member for 4 months. It says random 5 book adaptations. All right. Hellraiser, A Boy and His Dog, The Plague Dogs, Bad Moon, and The Relic.
A Boy and His Dog is a great movie.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I'll definitely be doing a stream on that in the next few weeks.
Ooh.
It's been on my list for about 2 years to do, and I'm finally getting around to it.
A slightly future sci-fi apocalyptic,
slightly dystopian
story.
Slightly Fallout,
girl and a boy,
Fallout and everything. Yeah.
And a dog. Punch the Dirty Roofer. Thank you so much for the $10. That's very generous of you. This is a little behind. Sorry. No need to apologize to me. Tom, if you want another movie that is better than the book, The Last of the Mohicans is a great example. Cooper was very into social Darwinism and the DEI of his day. You know what? I can't say if this does or doesn't show up on anybody's list yet, but I can guarantee if Six actually was able to be here this week, but she works, probably would have made her list because I think that she's a big fan of that film.
I will
find you.
It is a good movie.
Stirring movie.
Yeah. Mr. Tickle Trunk, holy crap, Oli. Not only is he a mod, he's a member. He's been a member for 33 months. One of my favorite members.
Good
job. I don't know why. Just always has been. So let's go ahead.
I want to quickly say that Titanic is where James Cameron sold out, and I think he's never bounced back from that movie.
Well, and part of it was before that too, but and this is what I've learned lately, like with his recent AI, and this is a total diatribe, I'm sorry guys, but his AI upscaling 4K versions of those movies, it's like dude has always destroyed his crap, and I don't understand why. But yeah, we should have known for a while. Oh my gosh, B Mart sending in $20. Thank you for that. It says Terms of Endearment. Yeah, that's another one that is pretty popular.
Terms of Endearment, the reason why the movie is good is because they added Jack Nicholson to it.
That's the only thing about it.
Right. Without
as far
it,
as
that
guys are concerned, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
the movie falls apart without Jack Nicholson in it, in my opinion.
Well, Jack Nicholson does make even bad movies watchable. That's very true. And
Certainly,
thank you.
that is a case where he certainly deserved any kind of praise he got for making that movie somehow somewhat watchable.
Well, then they went and made that sequel to it. So yeah, but anyway, let's keep moving along with the number ones because we're almost done with our list here. We got number one, The Road. That's on Brian's list.
Yeah.
Oh, where do I begin? Cormac McCarthy was a magnificent writer, sadly missed. I struggled because I only wanted one of each author on this list. I really wanted to have this and No Country for Old Men, both of which are fantastic adaptations. But in the end, I picked this for whatever reason. Just it was hard to pick between the two. If I didn't have to, then they'd both be on this list. But that was my own personal rule, not your guys. But I mean, I do love dystopian stuff in general, but he's such an evocative writer, and he did it in such a minimalist style in the book. I mean, even the descriptions of what's going on at the beginning and the father and son relationship, I mean, it actually brings tears to your eyes when you read it. It's an incredible power of the written word. So my thinking was when they made the movie, I thought, well, you know, this could be great. It could be terrible. What are they going to do with it? And I was so relieved and pleased when I watched the movie because I thought they did a fantastic job of maintaining that dystopian, the dystopian visuals and dystopian feeling of the whole thing, the struggle of the father to protect his son, their relationship was all brilliantly portrayed. Obviously, much more visual than just the words in the novel, but it was equally bleak, equally powerful, and a thoroughly well done adaptation to one of my favorite novels of all time, and indeed I think one of the best novels of the last 100 years. If you've never read it, it's powerful stuff, but if you've watched the movie, great, because the movie too is fantastic. It's not an easy watch, but it's a great one.
I got a couple. I love this movie. I got a copy here at home. One thing I got to say first and foremost, Guy Pearce is on the poster. He's in the movie for like 2 seconds. It's kind of funny.
But that's two movies on my list that he's in. And if I'd put the other version of The Time Machine in, he would have been in 3.
Well, I have a headcanon theory about this movie, given the casting. So for anybody out there, first off, I think this might be, I'm just going to say, I think this might be a prequel to Fury Road. Just because Charlize Theron wanders off into the distance and is never seen again. He just did. I
suspect she didn't survive.
Well, yeah, I just like to say head.
You don't see it. Yeah. That's true.
The other thing too, this is a lesser known sort of pre-apocalypse movie, but I think this maybe more appropriately be a sequel to The Rover with Guy Pearce. If you haven't seen The Rover, definitely check it out. It's great. It is a great little sort of it's kind of pre-end of the world movie, but it's great. But yeah, no, this movie, man, it is a tough watch because and the chemistry between Viggo Mortensen and the kid, I mean, that had to work perfectly or else the whole thing falls apart.
It's powerful and emotional. And
yeah.
As a father, if you're a father, you really feel what he's going through.
You really have to buy their relationship, and they just did it absolutely perfectly. And it's so bleak, and you feel the paranoia as they're moving through the world, looking over their shoulders every 3 seconds, and they really show you what the threats are as they go. And it's just got that little bit at the very end. I won't give anything away that doesn't make it feel cheesy. That was my one thing, is that when I was watching a movie like this, I'm thinking, okay, they're going to have to give us some kind of upswing at some point. But how they do that, better not overplay their hand, and they didn't, and it was perfect.
They did not, and because they didn't overplay it in the source material either.
Right.
It was extremely faithful, like No Country for Old Men, which is obviously different filmmakers, the Coen brothers. They said No Country for Old Men, we didn't change a word. And it's true, they only changed like one page of the novel when they filmed it. But this one is also pretty faithful. And that means it is bleak and it is disturbing, but it's also very powerful, very emotional. And there is this tiniest sliver of hope.
Yeah,
Tiny sliver.
It's not a certainty. It's just a little bit.
And
Anyway.
and Viggo Mortensen is superb in it. He really is. I did picture him as the father in the novel. Absolutely. Anyway, there it is. If you want a fun night, fun popcorn night, you and the girlfriend watch The Road.
Yeah, fun. Oh man, the joy.
Why do I sense some sarcasm in that?
Something on the Barbie. Put a little meat on the Barbie.
I have a feeling you can follow it up with Schindler's List and make it a
double whammy.
Requiem for a Dream, make it a triple threat. Yeah.
Or what's the one, the Stephen King one with the Mist? Yeah, there you go. There's
Lord.
It's a feel-good movie, right?
Yeah, it's great.
All right. Well, let's keep going. We've got Price's number 1 and my number 2.
The Godfather.
Gotta make an offer I can't refuse.
I think this is probably my favorite movie of all time. I would say that means that it has to be the best adaptation. I don't think there's a movie that I like more than The Godfather 1. It has everything that I want to see in a movie. It has Brando. It has Pacino. It has just such a great cast, and the storytelling and everything about it. It's one of those movies that even today, if like I'm flipping through the channels and it comes on anywhere, even with commercials, even with anything, I just leave it. I can't not watch The Godfather.
Yeah.
Just I don't know. Sometimes you have a movie that everything is just perfect, and I think that this could definitely go toe to toe with something like Goodfellas. But for me, there's something about this one that just a point or two more, just because there's something about it. I don't know why this one captures me even more than Goodfellas, although both really, really good movies.
Well, the reason it tied for me was mainly because this one is actually better than the book. Like Goodfellas, I'd say is like even with the book.
Right.
But Scribe, were you going to say something there?
Oh, the word that comes to my mind is elegance. There's an elegance to this movie that, I mean, now obviously
the novel's kind of trashy.
The novel is trashy, but this really, I mean, this one film does really feel like when someone uses the phrase sweeping epic, this really applies here because it's just so well done, and the storytelling and the performances and just the mood that is set with the cinematography and everything. It's just got an elegance to it that sits in contrast with the brutality of what's happening, and yet there's all this very high level pomp to everything. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, and yes, there's things that don't make the first film, but do make the second film, which I'm fine with. And that's why some people consider Godfather 1 and 2 like one and the same, or, we'll try to say Godfather 2 is better than part 1. I don't like having that argument because to me, they're all part of the same story in that respect. And yeah, like to me, the novel comes off one way and it evokes kind of one kind of, I think I think you hit it on the nail with the whole, it's classier. There's definitely a class that comes with the movie that you don't quite get with the book. And really there's not much difference in the story overall. I mean, they're very similar, but I mean, even things like the beginning of the book just drags out the wedding bit for way too long. And there's some other elements that just kind of lose along the way, which I'm fine with because they don't really add to the overall story, or they just kind of draw away from the main plot, which is really just, this dynasty of fathers and sons. And I mean, people don't realize, they think this is like that's the other thing that I got to remind people of too, is like, they think that this is the way that the mafia was for years. No, this influenced the mafia more than anything.
They want it to be like this. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in that respect, and that's why I love The Offer. If you guys have not seen The Offer,
I've watched it. It's good.
It's a mini series that was on Paramount Plus. It's fucking brilliant. You can get it on Blu-ray now, so it's not like you can't. You have to get Paramount Plus.
That Tom and I did on it. I think there's.
Oh yeah, yes. The Offer is great. It's almost like you got to see The Offer along with The Godfather now, just to understand. And my other favorite story.
in The Offer, they have like Francis Ford Coppola and Mario Puzo writing the screenplay together, and I think that highlights why it's better than the book, because you have the filmmaker and the author together working on a draft for how the movie would be.
Well, and better yet is you have the author of the book who's completely preoccupied with everything but the fucking story and writing the screenplay. Right. He's got so much other shit that's like, and that's the beauty, because that actually leads to my favorite story about this whole thing in the end. And I've told this before, so I apologize to those who've heard it, but like, I love it because when Puzo, after The Godfather, he was struggling author before The Godfather. Godfather saved his ass. He didn't even want to write The Godfather. And they cover all that stuff in The Offer. So I'm not going to get into that part of the story. So I say check that out. But this part isn't in The Offer, and I think it's hilarious. So after the movie came out, big, huge deal. He got this big, huge deal for Superman to write the screenplay. Well, he never wrote the screenplay for Godfather. That was all Francis who did all the work. So he goes to the store. He's like, well, I suppose I better buy a book on how to write a screenplay. So he buys a book on how to write a screenplay. And the first page says, if you want to know how to write a screenplay, read the Godfather screenplay. And he fucking slams the book down and goes, son of a bitch. So that's why Superman ended up being this 500-page novel, basically, that was split into 2 movies, because he wrote this huge epic story for Superman because he didn't know any other way to do it, right? Because that's just what he did. So yeah, that's just one of my favorite Puzo stories, because he was a character. He was quite the character, and I think The Offer captures him very well.
I think so.
Not in all his flaws and his likabilities, I guess you could say. But same thing with Francis in some respects too. But although that show does probably paint Francis a little bit more better light than he really was in real life. But yeah, no, The Godfather's a classic, and I'm glad it made your list as well. And yeah, and one that I knew had to make somebody's list, or the audience would fucking lynch us.
David Lynch us,
Lord, they would David Lynch us. That's right. I would totally lynch you from a tree. The tree that walks and talks in Lord of the Rings.
I have to admit, I'm going to lose my nerd card for this. I've never read Lord of the Rings. Never. I tried. I just, for whatever reason, I mean, it's honestly a big ask for me to get into high fantasy. I've always had a trouble getting into high fantasy. But here's the thing: between seeing the films and having so many friends who had read the books, and just hearing from them, and I'm talking about back when the movie first came out, not with all that's been said about it since then, but as I sat in the theater watching the movies with people who were fans of the books, and just seeing the absolute joy on their faces in seeing their favorite characters and events and everything brought to such expert life in these films. I felt the same way when I saw things like Iron Man or the first set of Marvel movies and everything, because I was such a big comic book freak, and to see these things that I love brought to life so lovingly. Even though I haven't read the books, I can't deny that from everybody that I know who is a total Lord of the Rings freakazoid, you can't get much better than what Jackson did with these 3 movies. And so consequently, like I said, I struggle with, well, should I put things on here that I've also read and said, but it's something undeniable about the phenomenon that was Lord of the Rings.
I think this is one you can get a pass with, and this is coming from somebody who has read the books. Because I'll be honest, the books kind of read like stereo instructions on how to make this movie.
Right.
And there's stuff that you just do not fucking need. Like, you get to the point where, and I'm almost half-ass not exaggerating, but where Tolkien is like describing the fucking leaves on the trees, right? Like, I mean, he gets so pedantic, and it's great if you're somebody who loves descriptive, type work. But as somebody who just wants, like, get me to the fucking story, because it's all there, right? It's all in the story, almost line for line. And I agree with you, Mr. Tickler. Tom Bombadil is not that big. It's not that big of a deal overall to the story.
That was the one thing I kept hearing from people. I was like, where's Tom Bombadil? I never knew. I was like, what?
Who cares? Jesus Christ. You've got 80 to 75 to 80% of the fucking novel here on screen in 3-hour long movies. How much more fucking can you ask for? Right? Yeah. I spent years watching The Greatest Adventure and the rotoscoped Lord of the Rings movie that Bakshi made and stuff like that, just wishing for an actual fucking Lord of the Rings film. the Return of the King one is what I was meant to, the sequel they did with the same TV people, the Rankin and Bass one, or Bass or whatever. But like, to me, I think you get a pass on this one. This is one that I think surpassed the books, because it's one of those things where the Lord of the Rings was already popular. I mean, second maybe only to the Bible as far as publication sold. And then you have these movies which come at a time which I don't think they could have come at a more perfect time. And we needed them. We needed a Star Wars at that point. We had the Matrix and the prequels and stuff like that, but we needed something that was our own in our generation for us 20 somethings at that point. And Lord of the Rings was it. Like, that was the one that everybody gravitated towards. When after we saw that first film, we all walked out going, holy shit, he did it.
Well, also the fact that this was coming off literally just months after September 11th, so everybody needed an escape.
Exactly.
Everybody needed a psychological escape from just reality for a while, and fortunately, these suckers just hit it out of the park.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I will agree, the Rankin and Bass Hobbit is much better than the Jackson films. That is true. But what they did do that most people don't know is that they did a Return of the King for television as well.
Yes.
To finish up the Lord of the Rings story, because it got left hanging, and it's not very good. The sequel sucks. Like, the only good part is you got like all the voices from The Hobbit coming back, and that's about it. And Roddy McDowell, but otherwise, yeah. But yeah, no, I'm glad this made somebody's list, or we would have been in a lot of fucking trouble.
For sure.
But who's okay? See, I think The Two Towers is the better of the three films as far as watchability. Just to me, I like it the best. I mean, the third one's good.
It has less work to do. Like the Two Towers, less work to do because you don't have to do all the introductions. You don't have to try to wrap everything up. You can just kind of focus on what's already been established. Sort of like Empire Strikes Back in a way,
It's hard to separate all three of them. And I know it's a long watch in one go, but to me, they're all one big long thing.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, I remember seeing them in the theater, and you had the year in between each film.
Is outstanding. It probably had the most impact on me.
All I remember about The Return of the King is I have to pee.
Yeah,
it was
especially
very
at
long.
the end. It's like, are we done yet?
End the fucking movie, Peter. I gotta pee.
That's right. I thought, okay, it's over now. Oh wait a minute, there's another bit.
No, it's not over yet. Oh shit, no, it's not. Wait, what? No, because that's what I loved about Two Towers. You walk out of that movie and you're just like, fuck yes, I want to see part 3 now. I can't wait a goddamn year. Oh my god, that was fucking amazing. And fucking Gollum, they finally got him right. I always love Gollum. He's my favorite fucking character, and I love the Theodore version, but they make him look like a fucking frog in The Hobbit. I don't understand that. And in the Bakshi version, he's just weird. This was the first time they fucking nail him, and he gets to shine in The Two Towers, and that's why I love it so much. I mean,
and the effects still hold up. I mean, even like 20 years after the fact, it's like,
look great.
It still looks good. It's like
Jurassic you hardly can talk of a scene outside of maybe The Nutty Professor with Eddie Murphy where you have somebody talking to themselves.
Yeah.
For like a 3-4 minute scene, and you're completely engrossed.
Yeah.
And they're talking to themselves. It's like, no, I'm not listening. That whole bit. Yeah, I love that whole bit. Just the whole fucking scene. That's my favorite scene, because my favorite scene from The Hobbit is Riddles in the Dark. And so that's why I don't bitch about The Hobbit as much as most people do, because I'm like, look, I can just watch the first Hobbit and I'm good. All my favorite scenes are in that one.
Yeah.
Riddles in the Dark is all I give a shit about. I mean, I do love The Hobbit overall, but I mean, yeah.
I didn't mind the Hobbit movies. They weren't as good as Lord of the Rings movies,
no,
but I didn't hate them.
out after the first one, though. That's my problem.
They were too much. Yeah, they could have cut them down a bit, I think.
Yeah. Could have been one great 3-hour movie, and that's it.
Yes, yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, Riddles in the Dark should have been somewhere in the midpoint, and then the last quarter of the film is the whole big fight, and then the walk home.
You could have cut the songs as well.
Well,
I know people get upset when I say that.
I mean, you mean the actual dwarf songs, or
cut the songs.
No, you can't do that.
People get upset,
but they should have just used the Rankin and Bass versions of them. That really drove me off in that version. I'm like, that's not how it should sound.
Well, what really ruined them? What really ruined them was the lack of Tom Bombadil.
Ah, yes, truly the lack of Tom Bombadil. They could see now. That's what if he'd have found a way to adapt Tom Bombadil into the Hobbit. I don't think people would have bitched and been like, "Finally, he used him." It's like whatever. See, and that's the other thing is the only character, the parts that I really like about the Hobbit, besides the the riddles of the dark and most of the stuff that's in just the first movie, is they add Radagast, that the brown wizard or whatever, and he's probably the best part, right? Like, yeah. Anyway, moving on. We've got my number one, and we're at the end of the list now. If God created a killing machine and gave it jaws. I mean, that line alone in the trailer.
Haven't we covered this one already? The Wizard of Jaws? Didn't we do that?
Wizard of Jaws. Dorothy, she went swimming one quiet night. No, Jaws. I mean, you talk about the quintessential, movie that's better than the book by far. I don't give a shit what anybody says. This movie still holds up. It's my favorite movie.
But does that make it a good adaptation then?
Yes, because I've read the book like 4 times. And the book, the shit that's good is in the movie. The shit that sucks is in the book.
Okay.
And the stuff that sucks in the book is also changed in the movie to where it works. This is one of those times where, Milius and all the other guys who worked on the script, they knew what they were doing. They saw that this is not a story about some fucking town, the mayor, all that kind of bullshit, the gangster shit, the mafia stuff, the fair, fuck all that noise. You don't need any of that shit. This is a Captain Ahab story. This is a guy who is hell bent on getting this fucking shark, and it's all 3 of them, right? So you have 3 Captain Ahabs, and they're each dealing with their own different thing. And that's where the movie understands this novel better. You have the chief of police who's afraid of the water, and he lives on a fucking island of all things. You have the young oceanographer who is much better. Like, look, I don't give a fuck. The book version of Hooper fucking sucks. He's a horrible fucking character. And in the movie, look, Richard Dreyfuss is Hooper, right? He nails it in that movie. They needed that character to be that character.
I think Burt Reynolds is a better Hooper.
Different conversation to be had.
Oh, sorry, different movie.
Yes, but then you have the older version of that character in Hooper, in Quint, right? Who probably started out a lot like Hooper, wide-eyed, lover of the sea. But Quint knows, right? He's seen the dark side of the sea. And those 3 guys and their dichotomy make this movie what it is. The shark is just a method of bringing these guys together for them to have to deal with their fears, right? And their differences and their similarities. And it's a brilliant bromance movie. And I wish I would have brought it up during the bromances, but I'm glad I brought it up here because I've talked about it enough. Jaws is my favorite movie of all time. I'll give you guys a minute or 2 to wax about it if you want to. And then we're pretty much caught up once we get to the super chats.
Well, we've said so much about Jaws in the past. I mean, it's a magnificent movie, and I agree. I've read the novel a few times, and I prefer the movie because again, it's got a big freaking shark in it.
Yeah, it's one of
the
best.
I've read lots of books. Most of them may have been movie adaptations, but I've still read them.
A lot of them had pictures in them, though, Tom. Of like
some of them were comic books.
Scantily clad women. But,
those were you didn't know about those. Those were under my bed. Nobody saw those.
Yeah.
Anyway, you were saying, Brian.
No, I just say it's. I agree.
All right,
with
go
you.
ahead.
There's nothing wrong with the novel. I think the movie is outstanding.
It's a decent novel, but it's like you don't need it. It's unnecessary, and it just bogs the story down in bullshit.
I was going to say, I was reminded of Jaws the other day because there was a quote that came out from Christopher Nolan where he was praising Godzilla -0 or whatever, and -1, pardon me. And he said something to the effect of, I mean, the movie's mostly about Godzilla. And I'm just like, no, Godzilla is just the catalyst for bringing the characters together and telling a story of the people having to deal with Godzilla, because Godzilla is ultimately a man versus nature type story, just like any other good zombie movie, or like this, like Jaws, like you were saying. The shark is the catalyst, but the story is the people.
It's their fear,
And
right?
yeah, solving a problem, coming together, differences of opinion, different perspectives, trying to solve a problem, and that making
three
that's
different
the story.
generations too. Yeah, so you have the three different generations, and it's more specific. And that's the one thing in the book that's not quite as specific in the movie, but is still kind of there. And that is Quint. You have as a college kid. You have Brody, who is in his mid to late 40s, right, hitting that midlife crisis. And you have Quint, who's supposed to be like in the later 50s, early 60s, to where he's hitting the end of his life cycle, right? Like he's feeling like he's, they all have their different things that they're dealing with. One doesn't feel like they're good enough yet. The one is stuck in their rut in life, and the other one is, wants to prove himself later in life, kind of thing. And he feels like this is his, and the book also has a shit ending compared to the movie. Sure, that's one thing that Spielberg was right about, is like Benchley fought him tooth and nail on that ending. He's like, that is not the ending in the book. That is not, like, it wouldn't even fucking happen like that in real life. Like, that wouldn't even work that way. And I think Mythbusters even proved that it wouldn't happen. But Spielberg was right when he says, I don't give a shit. I've had them for 2 hours. What I do in the last 5 minutes doesn't matter. And in fact, the audience is going to want me to do that. If I just have this movie end like the book, the audience will fucking hate me. And he is right. He was right. Like, because the book is such an anticlimactic ending, because that's kind of the whole point in the book. But in the movie, you need that explosion. You need that moment where, because that's Brody's moment where he's saying, fuck you to his fear, right? And he just blows it up right there.
You need the catharsis. You need that catharsis after sitting in a theater for that long, everything. Yeah.
That too is the audience, right? Like, I mean, it's both on both levels, right? It's not just, it's anticlimactic for Brody in the book just because it's the shark dies of the injuries from Quint. Has very little to do with what he does, right? Like, so, it's more like Quint going down with the shark in a way like Cat Mayhem. And I get that. That's more of a part of the book, but you don't need that in the movie. The movie is about Brody at the end of the day, because he's the main character. He's the focal point. So that's part of that part, but that's a whole, getting into movies and how they work compared to like books and shit like that and whatnot. But yeah, no, like, and you're right. I love the analogy and that's why I love how Godzilla -1, you could tell the I forget his name. I can't say his name all the time, but the director and the writer was a big fan of Jaws. It's clear. And he uses Jaws the same way, almost better in Godzilla, because it almost takes what Godzilla was originally meant to be. And that was basically an allegory for, the dropping of the bomb.
Right.
And it literally has that as a lingering memory through the whole film, right? It works even more so on that analogy, because you have this constant problem they're dealing with. And that's kind of what the whole story is about anyways, dealing with the fallout, right? They were left on their own by America. It's like, see ya, you're on your own. We got other shit to deal with, right? So Godzilla is just basically a metaphor for that. And it's the same thing here, right? It's a metaphor for all these men's fears. And I mean, you can even throw the mayor in there for that matter. But anyway, we've talked enough about Jaws. I want to see what you guys are saying out there. We've got Jason Webster, who has 5 films on his list here. He says, my top 5 film adaptations are The Shining. Ooh, that was one I almost made my list, but didn't. Jaws, Dune Part 1, The Year of Living Dangerously, and Lord of the Rings. There you go. That's a good list. Then we got another one from Jason Webster. Thank you again for another 5, and says top miniseries adaptations of books: Born Identity, 1988. Oh, I did not know they did that.
Yep.
Frank Herbert's Dune, and Night Manager, and Shogun. Oh, I got to seek that out.
Yeah, I think Richard Chamberlain was born in the 88 and obviously in the original Shogun, but yeah, not the. I still mean to watch the new Shogun. I haven't seen that yet.
The Born Identity. I did not know they did one before the Matt Damon one.
They did, yeah.
I'll have to check that out. Then Rob Altus says, nobody picked Planet of the Apes, one of the best adaptations that is better than the book. I agree with you, Rob.
That's true. That's true.
I wouldn't say nobody picked it. Rob, you picked it, mate. You picked it. Well played. Well played.
And again, that was where we were saying at the beginning, this is one of those tough lists.
Yeah.
Like there are so many, and this is one that was kind of in my meandering.
Got 5 choices. Yeah.
My meandering at the bottom of my top 10, maybe. But yeah, I can't deny it. It's definitely a great one. What were you saying, Brian?
No, we've only got 5 choices, and it's great that people in the chat have their own choices, and nobody's right or wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah.
except for those stupid ones we used to read from those
Except for
magazines.
the ones
those people
Talks
didn't know.
picks, nobody's right or wrong.
Yeah.
Nobody
Toxic
picked
Wait.
Twilight. What's wrong with you people?
Well, it's because 6 wasn't here.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Okay.
Twilight.
Remember the
What?
joke in the DM group was that you remember that she'd just pick all the Twilight books or whatever.
Yeah. It's
And
true.
I would only pick. I only picked stuff that I've actually read the book of. I wouldn't pick
Book.
something like,
Take a drink.
yeah. I wouldn't.
You're getting
pick
people very
Twilight.
drunk right now.
I wouldn't pick Twilight or Harry Potter or anything like that because I've never read them. So why would I pick them? Yeah.
Honestly, I'm kind of
I would
surprised
be
somebody
honest.
didn't pick a Harry Potter one.
It wouldn't be honest of me to do so, even if I liked the movies.
That's fair. Well, and I mean, Scribe did cheat a little bit with the Lord of the Rings bit, but that's all right.
Yeah, I couldn't. I just couldn't. I'm trying to think of like there's a bunch of movies I've seen that are based on books and things, but I try to think of like what would be the number one. Like I say, just for the sort of contact high from I just remember sitting in the theater with my friends and just their awe and wonder. It was infectious, and I couldn't deny it.
My list was basically based upon the idea that most of those movies that I said, hardly any time in history would somebody go, "Oh, you got to read the book though too."
Okay.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like those are not like Lord of the Rings is one of those where most people will be like, "Oh, you should read the books." Dune, you should read the books, and that's kind of where I attacked this list from because, like I said, Dune was kind of the inspiration.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, had it been before Dune 2, Dune Part 1 would have made my list. But after Dune Part 2, I'm like, no, it didn't stick the fucking landing.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, that retroactively hurts the first film, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So here I was looking at movies where I'm like, okay, so what does really make a best adaptation of a film? And that's one where I said pretty much where everybody doesn't go like, you have to read the book. You
know what didn't make anybody's list? Die Hard.
It's funny you mention that because
the book is so different from the movie. I think it's
that's
almost
one thing too. But
yeah,
so
too much difference.
That was why I didn't pick some of them like Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It's so different. It's like a different animal. Same thing with Die Hard. And there was a couple other ones that I was thinking about, but I'm like, I don't know if it's fair to really compare them to the book or Starship Troopers or.
I wouldn't have picked. I mean, Starship Troopers was one of the very first science fiction novels I got into in a big way. I love the novel and I love the movie, but I didn't pick the movie for this because it's so different in tone from the novel. I love them both equally but differently. So I didn't feel I wanted to put it on here for that very reason. It's not a straightforward adaptation of the novel because it's very satirical and very satirical against what the novel stood for.
Very much so. And this is another one that almost made my list. Stand By Me almost made my list.
It's a good one.
Yeah, there's so many. That's the problem with this list, that this is another one where it's like there's so many great choices. So I tried to narrow it down, like I said, to the ones where nobody ever tells you got to read the book too. That was my main kind of goal of the top 5 or 6 that I picked. Right. Godfather might be one of the only exceptions on the list. Some people say you should read The Godfather, but I'm one of those like,
nah,
you don't really need to.
Yeah, not necessarily.
Not really. I mean, even The Exorcist is one of those like, no, the movie does a pretty goddamn good job of giving you what's in the novel.
Sometimes there's no point in reading the novel.
I mean, if anything, the version you've never seen, the extended cut, is a more better representation of the novel. I'll give it that. But like, yeah, at that point, you're like, you don't really need to. Why waste that time when you got a perfectly good movie version of it? I mean, I get it. Some people are just book people, but yeah. It's funny nobody picked Blade Runner 2, but I think that's another example of
it's so different.
The story being so different, right? And Total Recall is another one I think that people mentioned earlier.
Very different. So
I'm surprised nobody picked any Bond ones either.
Well, I did think about that, but yeah.
But that's another one where you could argue, is it fair to compare them when they had like a totally different thing going on with the movies?
It's a lot of
the books in a way.
Yeah.
Well,
there's thousands of choices, and you pick what you pick, and it's up to everyone else in the chat to pick their ones. So they get called out.
Vidiot Savant, you brought up a great point here, but here's the thing: that's a totally different top 5, right? Would be our top 5 comic book adaptations.
True.
And that's why we totally, and this is where, even though jokingly, we were talking about the whole White Christmas thing because it's based on a play, based on a movie, based on this and that and the other, to where like you could argue that it's based on the card, the Hallmark card, like in the play or whatever to a point, but like then that takes it away from being an adaptation of a book. So we're more specifically adaptations of books. When we think of books, we're talking about actual novels / word books, not picture books, or graphic novels or comic books. Yeah. Books.
Book.
But remember, when we say it, don't drink or you'll die.
All right.
Quit,
Yeah. No.
quit it. You're going to kill people. Inverse Opinion has been here for 11 months. Thank you for that.
Wow.
And their choice is Our First Blood. Good choice. Good one. That was one that almost made my list. Almost made my fight. It just barely didn't. The Sackets, Lonesome Dove, 2000 Leagues Under the Sea, and Stand By Me. Good choices. Good choices.
Yeah, we didn't. People have been pointing out great adaptations for TV.
Yeah.
I mean, we stuck to movies pretty much.
See, and here's one Gokuri I would probably Dracula has so many adaptations, and that's why I make the joke that nobody's been killed on screen more times than Dracula, because it's probably true, since he dies at the end of every movie. There's so many of them, it's tough. Like, personally, I lean more towards the Bram Stoker Dracula that Coppola did, as far as like if I want to watch one that's more like the book. But I know there was like a British miniseries that I think was the closest to the book, if I remember right, or something like that.
What?
I don't know.
I was
Of Dracula. But I know the Angry Video Game Nerd did a great breakdown a couple of years back where he goes through all of the major Dracula adaptations.
So many.
And he narrows it down to like ones that are clearly just adaptations of the book and not just random Dracula films, right? But he goes through them all, and the one that he picked that had the most similarities to the book and all that kind of stuff was like a British miniseries, if I remember right. But the Bram Stoker came in like 2, and then the rest came down the line. But I think Bela Lugosi's one came in somewhere in the top 10, but it wasn't quite up there, because that one, of course, that's a different animal altogether, though, because that's actually an adaptation of the play, which is based on the book. So it's kind of, is it fair to really compare that one to the book so much? So I think it's a good representation of what the stage play was at the time, but yeah, the stage play is a very dumbed down version of the book, right? So that's another good conversation to be had, though. Lawrence of Arabia, that's one I'm surprised didn't show up yet.
Yeah.
But with that, I think we are going to wrap this up. Thank you so much, guys, for making this another successful shit list. Sorry it's been too long. MASH is a good choice, too. Yeah. That's another one, though, that's way different than the book.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Totally different than the book. B Mart sends in another 20. Thank you so much. Very generous tonight. Holy crap. Thank you so much. Is it B Mart or B Marty? I just want to get it right. Adaptation or Marte. Yeah, it could be like that. Adaptation for TV, Duel, directed by Steven Spielberg. I just got the 4K of this. I've not seen this since I was a kid.
Great flick.
And I've heard, it's very comparable to Jaws. Even he considers it kind of a Jaws' his sequel.
Jaws on land.
That's what he called it. That's what he said.
Land shark.
Yeah.
Land
Duel
shark.
has 4 letters. Jaws has 4 letters. That's what he kept saying.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I wonder if they're talking about the 2013 British Dracula TV.
I think that's the one.
The Jonathan Rhys Meyers.
I think so.
I think I might actually have seen that. Now I think about it.
The Jonathan Rhys Meyers one? Really? Is that? I don't think that's very accurate. They take it. Doesn't he show up in America like early on? And
that might not be the one. It's out there. Just go to type Angry Video Game Nerd Dracula, and I'm sure it'll pop up.
So many different ones.
Yeah. That's what he does. He goes through them all. He compares them to the book as far as like the things that are in the book that are in the movies, things that deviate, things that are added, things are subtracted. And he's got a formula for it. And like I said, he comes up with like a top 30, I think it is, or something like that. Top 20, something like that. I'll send that to you, Brian. But yeah.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah.
All right, kids. So let's go around the horn here. We got Scribe. What do you got coming up?
Every Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, I have my series called TED Excellence, where I take a look at TED or TEDx talks of note. We do TEDx bingo to look out for common themes and elements. And thankfully, TEDx is a font of all types of different subject matters and kooky things that people talk about with a level of certitude that sometimes does not equate to the subject matter they're giving us. So it's always fun, educational, and get your critical thinking skills going. So take a look at that. And as far as you comic book nerds out there, I took a little diversion this morning with my Sunday stream and did a little Punisher news breakdown of recent stories dealing with the character of the Punisher and also being a complete nerd about the character while I'm talking about it. So take a look at that. And yeah, that's what I got.
Awesome sauce. And right there, Mr. TT's sharing the link for the video I'm talking about. Thank you so much. Living up to the mod, I was gonna say standard, but that's not what I meant. Job, I guess, requirements. There you go. I don't know. Thank you so much for being a mod. That's all I want to say. Dr. Coffin Nails as well.
He's a top mod.
He is a top mod. He is indeed. And Mecha J's in the house too, I saw as well. And I want to thank you guys as well, as always. I don't thank you guys enough. So that was the whole point. I really brought it up anyway. But yeah, so thank you for that scribe. And it's always great to have you here. What about you, Brian? What you got going on? I think you got something going on tomorrow afternoon, right?
But looking at these Dracula adaptations, there was a 1977 BBC one with Louis Jourdan, which people seem to highlight.
Might be the one.
So that could be the one. And I may have seen it, but it's so long ago now I can't remember. But anyway, yes, tomorrow on my channel, that 70s Rock Fan, 3 p.m. Mountain Time, whatever that is in real time. We're doing another edition of Canon Film Club. Tomorrow we're doing Breaking and Breaking 2 Electric Boogaloo. So that should be a lot of fun. I mean, monetization is right out the window because we'll be playing some clips of some of those great dance scenes and that great music, and just basically having a lot of fun with two kind of movies that they actually captured the zeitgeist on and made a bit of money out of before things went haywire. So yeah, and hopefully see you all there. Tom, you're always welcome as always, of course. I know you're a busy man, but if you feel like dropping by,
you know, I don't know how Tox is going to feel. You should ask him if he wants to.
Oh no, he's coming. He's coming.
Oh, he's coming. Well, then if you have Tox there, I'll try. But I have not seen those movies in years. I just bought them again because they've been out of print for a few years.
Yeah.
So I haven't had a chance to see them yet.
Tons of fun. Yeah.
I seen them a couple times as a kid, but like literally, we're talking when I was a kid. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's tomorrow afternoon. Then tomorrow night I'll be over in Comics Division. Monday night Meltdown, and then the week will unfold as it does.
Awesome sauce. And Price, what you got coming up?
I have a few streams. I'm trying to remember. There's something I'm doing with a guy called Diabolical Souls on Tuesday after the Midnight's Edge After Dark one. And then I sometimes do these late night experimental ones with my friend Dred Roberts. And then on Thursday, I have the Quantum Leap on my live channel with Script and a few other friends. That should be pretty cool. So yeah, I'll keep people posted. I should be more organized and let people know. But if they subscribe to one or both of my channels, they'll know more.
All right. And thank you, Sadie, for reminding me that you have to go out again. So with that, I'm going to let Sadie out here. Take care of yourselves and each other. We'll see you on the next round.
The Marleys were dead to begin with.
Well, pardon me?
That's how the story begins, Rizzo. The Marleys were dead to begin with.
Is that the Toronto Marleys he's talking about?